So I was a lot more confident in this thesis before I read the ending, and now I'm not so sure. But let's talk about it. To the ones who don't run with the popular crowd, the ones who get caught reading under their desks, the ones who feel like they never get invited, included, or represented, get your leathers. We have dragons to ride. So I know writers were black, but scribes were beige. And as much as I know I want to be a writer, I know I'm a scribe. I know I'm a scribe. So, hey, hi, hello. Welcome, travelers and friends alike. I'm Percy. Nice to see you. How you guys doing? I hope you're doing as well as you can, as we all are. Honestly, I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but I will always recommend getting a snack, getting a craft, getting comfy and cozy, and just get ready to chat. And if you're wondering why are we on the floor, it's pouring rain outside and this is the only lighting I can have because I'm not in my home. Don't worry about it. So, Onyx Storm came out. Happy Onyx Storm Day. But Onyx Storm came out, which is the third book in the Empyrean series, also known as the Fourth Wing series to most people. And originally, I wasn't going to make a video on it. I had made a video on Fourth Wing, and I was gonna make a video on Iron Flame. I even had a title picked out. What, Mama? The other reason why we're on the floor is in case little Mama wants to come and join us, by the way. I even had a title picked out and everything, for the girlies who DNF'd Iron Flame but still want to know what happened. And my plan was to release that in early January, right? Fire. We love to see it. It would have popped off. I don't think it would have. In my heart, I think it could have, but I think it would have been a fire video. Anyway. And part of me really wishes that I could have made that video, But honestly, I just couldn't bring myself to go back there. And I still don't think I can. And I currently want to reread the series and try my hand at theory crafting for the first time. And then I think about having to listen to Violet and Xaden fight and have the same fight 10 million times. And I don't wanna. So before we really get into it, I didn't even say who I am. Oh my goodness. I'm Percy. Hello. I am a published author with a background in performing arts. I love reading. I think that's really all you need to know about me. But I'm coming at this from an author's point of view. I'm not coming at this as someone who just ingests books, but who ingests books with the intention of trying to be a better author. And that's how I approach all of the books that I recap and review here on this channel. Anyway, before we jump into Onyx Storm, I'm sick. If you don't like husky voices, what's it got to do with me? Nothing. Figure it out. But other than that, before we jump into Onyx Storm, I did want to take a moment to talk about Iron Flame and just my general thoughts on it. And if I'm looking here, that's my script. I have 25 pages to go through. So if you see me looking down, don't worry about it. So I'm just going to take a moment to talk about Iron Flame and my general thoughts on it. We're not going to do any sort of in-depth recap for that one. Personally, I'm going to link in the description Natalie Hoover, who does wonderful recaps, not just on Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and she's doing Onyx Storm coming up in February, but anything she covers. Incredibly charming lady. And everything that she covers is very fun. So I'm going to leave her link in the description, and that's the video that I used to recap Iron Flame before I read Onyx Storm, because I couldn't remember anything that happened. It went in one ear and out the other, apparently. I remembered zilch. So, but honestly, realizing that I didn't retain anything really made me sad, because I remember being so excited about Iron Flame because I loved Fourth Wing so much. It ignited something in me as a reader that hasn't been ignited in a very long time, as it did for so many people. And the fact that Iron Flame came out 6 months later was just unheard of. It was insane, an insane turnaround. And it just made me really excited to read it, as it is for many people. There's a reason why Onyx Storm is the fastest selling adult novel of all time. Personally, a little background with me and my reading journey with this series. I started reading Iron Flame the same time I started my chronic pain journey. So I have fibromyalgia, officially been diagnosed, yay. But I got fibromyalgia at 27 is when I got diagnosed. I'm currently 28. And to have your life change overnight and learning to deal with suddenly being disabled and suddenly having all this chronic pain issues and having to mentally grapple with that and then also physically grapple with that was a lot. And so having a book where the main hero is also disabled and who also deals with chronic pain, oh my god, it meant so much to me. Like, Violet and Darna and Taryn mean so much to me. And I guess Aiden is fine too, I guess. But those three, oh, my world. I love them. So I loved Fourth Wing. And then Iron Flame came out, and it was like whiplash. It made me lose hope in the series. And that's why I never covered it, right? So what went wrong with Iron Flame? Personally, I think it came out too fast. And I know I just said, like, oh, the 6 months, that's so cool. Unprecedented, because that's not a lot of time to write a book. I think it came out too fast, and I think the unexpected and unprecedented virality of Fourth Wing put a lot of pressure on Rebecca Yarros and her team, and whether it is editor or publisher or management, what have you, it put a lot of pressure on them, because of course you want to ride this wave. Of course you're like, oh my god, do you see this? Well, we already have the next one planned out. Get it out now. And I don't blame them for that in the slightest. Anyone else would too. I would too. Like, damn. The summer of 2023, like, you couldn't go anywhere in the book space without seeing Fourth Wing this, Fourth Wing that. So Fourth Wing came out April 2023, and then by October 2023, Iron Flame was already on shelves, ready to go. And all I can really think is that she must have had it already drafted. You know what I mean? Whether their publisher was like, oh, this first one, we know it's going to sell well, let's just start working on the next one, even if they hadn't requested it, or if it was always planned to have the next one come out, so she was already working on it. But it feels like she must have had the draft ready, or almost ready. 1, 2 passes, okay, we're done, put it out. We need it out now to capitalize on, like, the holiday rush for 2023, right? And that's what this feels like. It feels like a first or second draft, like a polished draft, but a draft nonetheless. And I think that's an ice cold take. I've heard many other people have, like, the same criticism with it. It just needed, like, more time to cook, you know? We need to trim the fat off a little bit more. And honestly, I'm really glad that Rebecca Yarros decided to postpone Onyx Flame to come out 2025 instead of the original 2024 release, which I think it was meant to come out like another 6 months later. And I'm like, 3 books in 18? No, that's not correct. No, 18 months. What's 6 times 3? It's 18. 3 books in 18 months is insane. And yes, there are many indie publishers who do publish at that rate, but she's a traditional published author. There's many more avenues, many more barriers, many more hands in the pot to get things done, you know? So I'm personally really glad that she gave Onyx Storm time to breathe and time to cook, and was able to postpone, and felt like she was able to postpone that publishing date, and that it wouldn't count against her. You know what I mean? That just makes me happy. I think it's worth applauding that she realized fans want quality over quantity, especially in this day and age where quantity seems to be the end-all be-all, you know? But to see that and then to give that to them, I will applaud her for that. And that brings me to my second biggest gripe with Iron Flame, which is fan service. Brucey, what are you talking about? Like, having authors listen to the fans is a good thing. And it is, for the most part. There's a very special relationship between an author and their fans, and that should be honored. The thing about books is that we read them alone, whether that be traditional books, ebooks, audiobooks. 90% of the time, it's a private relationship that you have with said book. And so when the author acknowledges fans personally, it feels like they're acknowledging you personally. Yeah, you. And to some degree they are. And that's why when an author comes out as like a really shitty person, oh, it sucks. Oh my god, I want to curse. But I think we're still too early in the video. But it hurts. Like, J.K. Rowling and Neil Gaiman being like 2 of the biggest names right now in that conversation. Between the 2 of them, they left hundreds of thousands of people, like, heartbroken in their wake. And yes, once someone puts their work into the world, it takes on a life of its own. So yes, death to the author, but their work is their tombstone. They can only ever write what they know, and that context is really important to remember. So we're going to put a pin in that. But I bring that up because if you are active in your fan base and you see what they're asking for, of course that's going to influence your writing, because you know that's what they want. You know that's what sells well. Back to fan service, it can be a really fine line. So in Fourth Wing, we're introduced to Violet and Xaden, right? Our two love interests. And they start off as enemies to lovers, as is foretold in the stars for every shadow wielder in every universe ever. But these guys are special because they have a special bonded link in their brain. And if you have not read any of these books, one, you're going to be real confused. You just are. And two, you're probably going to roll your eyes, but like, it works. Trust me, okay? Trust me to take you on this journey. I swear to God and Goddess, like the mental link, it works, okay? You have to be in it. You gotta be in it to win it, alright? It's done well, and by well, I mean fun. And that's almost more important than good, you know? Like, the entire story feels like you're reading fan fiction under the covers with a flashlight at 3 a.m., and I mean that with all the love in my heart for fan fiction. But anyway, these two, from the beginning, they have this really passionate relationship, right? They start off enemies, and then Violet ends up bonding with, like, the biggest, baddest dragon in town named Terran, my beloved, and an absolute little baby angel named Andarna. And Terran is permanently mated to Sigel, whom my script keeps autocorrecting to Seagull. So if I say Seagull, I'm sorry. But he's permanently mated to Sigel, and that's like a huge deal, right? Dragons mate for life, and it's like a physical magic bond. So now, all 5 of them, Violet, Xaden, Terran, Sigel, and Andarna, who's just along for the ride, all 5 of them share that same mental link that Terran and Sigel share, because they're all connected. They're all in one big room, okay? And the way that it works, I actually think is quite sweet. So it's a mind palace, essentially. And for Violet, her mind palace is the archive, which is like the library. And the reason is because that's where she kind of grew up going. That's where her dad worked, and that's where she spent most of her childhood. And before she was meant to be a writer, she was meant to be a scribe. So even now, with her dragon, she still, like, holds the archives with her. And I think it's sweet, okay? And at the end of Onyx Storm, we actually learn what Imogen's mind palace is, and it's like her childhood home, and it's the front door, and it's just wholesome, okay? And I like the idea that for these humans to be able to wield these huge amounts of dragon power, that they have to go to their happy place. So I find that endearing. Anyway, people loved the Violet and Xaden passionate, fiery relationship. Not me, but almost everyone else did. And that passion has followed them throughout the series. In Iron Flame, it manifested as like this hot and cold, on and off again, constantly fighting type of relationship, which a lot of fans have dubbed as toxic, which in the context of that book, I would agree. And like, they literally fight so much that I had a theory that the twist reveal in Onyx Storm was going to be that, oh no, we didn't actually like each other. It's just the fact that our dragons are mated is why we feel this way about each other, and really pondering the question of like free will versus choice, and did we ever actually have feelings for one another, like, because they can still find each other hot, but that doesn't mean that they love one another the way that they do. Which, by the way, I made a TikTok about this exact thing when I first started reading Onyx Storm, and someone said my question would be answered, and what were you talking about? No, it was not. Never once did they question whether their love was manufactured or their free will was taken from them. That thought never crossed their mind. Either way, people hated how much they fought. I am people. It can be genuinely really hard to get through because they have the same fight like 10 times, and it's all, I need to trust you. You can. Can I? I don't know. Can you? I don't know anymore. Of course you can. How can I? Because I love you. Then tell me everything. I need you to trust me. My hood fell off. I don't care how goofy that looks, I'm not refilming that. Rinse, flip pronouns, repeat for 400 pages, sprinkling in some intense, spicy scenes every 75 pages or so for variety, okay? And I bring this all up to highlight my point about feeding the fans. Because the first time I read Iron Flame, it felt like that passion on again, off again allowed for them to have more intense, spicy scenes. And it felt like that was her solution and response to the fan loving the spicy scenes the spicy scenes so much, and that was Rebecca Yarros' response to that reception, because how can you keep the enemies to lovers' passion once they become lovers? Well, you had fights, and if it's hot and cold, that means you can have a new trope to fulfill, where now they're almost fake dating, because what are they? They still have to appear like a united front because their dragons are still together, but are they together? They still have like the appearance as a couple, but also they still want to fuck. And if that intensity and that passion is there, that means more sex scenes, because the fandom loves the sex scenes. And trust me, get back on my head. And trust me, I love spicy books. I write spicy books. So this is not a dig at spicy books. I just bring this up because there's just so much. There's just so much sex all the time in that book. And so much fighting all the time in that book. And they fuck as if they haven't seen each other in like 4 or 5 months when it's been a week. And it's like, guys, just talk, please, just once. And I haven't even brought up Catriona yet. But don't worry, because I'm about to. So Catriona, she's a Griffin rider. And if you remember, or not, the Griffins were the original villains in Fourth Wing. Because the Kingdom of Navarre, where the dragons are, the Kingdom of Navarre is at war with the Kingdom of Poromil, and the Griffin riders are Poromish. I'm doing a lot of hand gestures and you can't see half of them. I had my hair up, and it's no more hoodie time because it's raining and it's really humid and I'm hot. And I bring her up because the handling of Catriona, from what I have seen, is probably the second most critiqued thing of Iron Flame, right? And because you see, Catriona is Xaden's ex. They were betrothed as babies, they dated when they were older, Xaden broke it off, and then a little while later he met Violet, blah 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 blah. And we meet Catriona halfway through Iron Flame.
Okay, so context. The first half of Iron Flame, Violet is grappling with the idea that Venom are real, Griffin are bad guys, Venom are human who pull magic from the source, which I just think is like the life force of the earth, like the earth core. But them pulling the magic thus kills anything that they're touching, which also kills part of their soul. It's very dangerous. Very dangerous. And after learning this, her and Xaden, they lead a tiny, itty bitty little revolution over the government hiding the fact that Venom exists, and our heroes end up stealing half of the war college to go with them to continue going to college just somewhere else, and somewhere else being Tyrrendor, which is Xaden's home country, which is supposed to have been burnt to the ground.
Okay. And you see, because of this itty bitty teeny weeny little tiny, so demure little revolution, Xaden is trying to ally with Poromil, thus Catriona coming into the story. Because a whole crew of flyers end up coming back to Tyrrendor. So a whole having flyers, so Griffin riders are flyers. So a whole group of flyers coming back to Tyrrendor in exchange for having the king's luminary. What's a luminary? No one knows. Not important. The important part is Catriona is here. And her and Violet keep fighting. Because you see, the flyers also have powers. They're not as powerful as riders because dragons bigger, dragons more power. But they still got a little something up their sleeve. And Cat specifically has the power of emotional manipulation. So if she can make you a little bit jealous or a little bit angry, she can just kind of go in and ramp that up to 1,000,000 and really get under your skin. And she keeps doing it to Violet for way too long. And this is what I mean about this book feeling like a first or second draft. Everything goes on way too long, leading to what feels like a lot of repetitive word soup. The pacing's just not there, which sucks, specifically for sequel to an action-packed fun book like Fourth Wing. Like, when I read Fourth Wing, I want brain go off, dragon go vroom. Okay? And also justice for Cat. Great character. Only gets the short end of the stick the entire time. What does she do? Nothing. She was a little bitchy once, okay? But who here amongst us, okay? And I will say there's supposed to be like this semi-redeeming moment between Cat and Violet where Cat says, you think I'm so petty I'd attack another woman over a man? Oh, wait, no, sorry. Over love, not a man. But the man's implied. Like, a man? Really? Ew. But she says that because the only reason she's going after Violet is to get back with Xaden, not for him, but for his crown. Because, like, she's supposed to. Like, she's the heir of Poromil and their marriage. The marriage alliance is, like, a big deal. So she's supposed to do this, right? And I think she specifically says crown, which has always confused me because he's a duke. Not a king. Am I stupid? Like, would he have a crown as a duke? I don't think so. He just has like a title and his lordship and probably serfs, but not a crown. But I think she says specifically crown, right? Anyway, but this is supposed to make the entire thing between Cat and Violet feel worth it. Oh, a twist. Oh, it feels resolved. And I think it could have done that if it didn't go on for as long as it did. Percy, what does this all have to do with fan service? I'm so glad you asked. Because in Onyx Storm, somewhere between chapters 5 and 10, I wasn't taking notes, sue me. I wasn't planning on making a video. Cat tries to do the jealous thing to Violet, but it's at a weird point, and she's very intense about it, right? Like, grabs her, she doesn't grab her, but she, like, looks her in her eyes, and she's like, how could you think he'd love you? Like, something really intense for not an appropriate situation. But Violet looks her in the eyes and goes, oh, shut the fuck up, Cat. And it is never brought up again. Ever. And it's one of the first things that I clocked that made me start thinking about the script. And the second was when Rian, Riddick, and Sawyer, all of Violet's besties, they're all clowning on her and saying that her and Xaden fight like an old married couple. Because they're always fighting over the same things over and over and, oh, trust, and like, they're making fun of her. And see, that's when I started taking notes, and this thesis started to take shape. Oh, also, Iron Flame ends with Xaden turning venom. That's important, obviously, for this book we're about to talk about. So I just want to remind everyone, our love interest is slowly dying from the inside out. Also, Violet's mom, General Thorngale, does die in front of her daughter in order to fuel the Wardstone, to protect their school because they were under attack. So our girl's not having a good week, to say the least. A good 24 hours, honestly. Or a bad 24 hours, I should say. But anyway, on to Onyx Storm. So this isn't going to be a recap, or at least not a good one. Especially in the beginning, because again, I didn't start taking notes until around chapter 13. And even then, sometimes I forgot. But other than that, oh, we are so fucking back, baby. Like, this book is so good. It's so good. And I think I'm going to give it a 4.5 stars. And we will talk about why I took that last 0.5 star away soon. When I wasn't reading it, it was on my mind. When I was reading it, I was gripped. I couldn't put it down. It had me bewitched, body, mind, and soul. Sorry. But it felt like a return to form. And from page 1, I couldn't help but think it was because she was able to take more time with it and really cut down that extra fat. It needed to cook more, and this one was given the time to simmer. And I think, this is only my opinion, that if Rebecca Yarros felt like she could have taken more time to write Iron Flame, that she would have. And that Iron Flame would be just as good as Onyx Storm and Fourth Wing. And again, my opinion, conjecture from things I've seen online. And again, I completely understand why they wanted it out as soon as possible. I would have done the same thing, and you would have too. Don't pretend. Don't pretend. With that much virality, oh my god, I would be shocked. I would have been appalled if she didn't, if she had something ready. Anyway, and I'm glad now that she is choosing to take more time with these books, and I don't want to see none of you selfish babies being mad that books take time to write. They always have and they always will, okay? And also let it be known that all opinions in this video are mine and mine alone from my little noggin, and she is little, and she can only make so many thoughts in a day, so so do with that information what you will. Medicine time! So, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Okay. So yeah, all these thoughts are my own. I have no insider knowledge. I'm simply making observations and creating conjectures and thoughts and opinions based off all that information. And feel free to talk about it in the comments, but let's keep it in the comments, okay? This is a safe space. Let's keep it here, okay? But with all that out of the way, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Hold on. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? We pick up right where Iron Flame left off. Literally, probably like 10 minutes later. Violet is grappling with Xaden being Venom, understandable. And we learned fairly early on that a few other people are told that he is venom right off the bat in an attempt to have people on his side to help him not channel. Okay? A babysitter squad, if you will. And in that babysitter squad, it's Imogen, Bodhi, and Garrick. And by the end, all of our heroes know. Rhys, Sawyer, Riddick, Eric, all of them, okay? But now, a little while later, college has picked back up, because again, they're just still in school, because they're like sophomores in college. But college has picked back up, and everyone is trying to like figure out how can our heroes go back to school after leading their itsy bitsy tiny whiny little rebellion from the last book. Should they be allowed back in school even after doing that? Not only that, but our writers, like our heroes, are trying to get the flyers, again the Griffin riders, the flyers, to be accepted by the riders that stayed, that didn't join in the revolution, because they still see them as enemies. And also a good little bit of racism and xenophobia just sprinkled in there, just, you know? So that's happening. Oh, and also Sawyer lost his leg. That happened at the very end of the last book. It just got chopped off. And I specifically bring Sawyer up because I love him, okay? You can rip Sawyer out of my cold dead hands. Like, one, I love the representation and the willingness to, like, not pull punches. We'll talk about that phrase in a second, not a second, in like an hour at the very end of the video. But the willingness to have other characters who are also disabled, like not pull punches in that way, right? And that disability looks different on everyone. Like, I love that representation as someone who is also currently disabled and also currently learning to live with disability and also completely invisible disability. So Sawyer means a lot to me, okay? But two, I will say whenever Sawyer is mentioned, I can only picture Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. I'm sorry. Fun fact, How to Train Your Dragon is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I really want a tattoo from How to Train Your Dragon. I want a little sigil that Hiccup and Toothless wear. They wear it on their left side because Hiccup lost his left leg and Toothless lost his left, like, tail fin. But I want it now on my right leg because ever since my fibromyalgia started, my right leg is my bad leg. Like, that's where all my pain is, so I just think that's funny, and I'm keeping this in. It's dragon related, okay? Let me have this. Anyway, so after the prologue, at the very beginning of our book, our friends, our band of bandits, our heroes, are going to go visit Sawyer. He's in the infirmary, and they're, like, checking on him to see how he is. And, out of nowhere, venom attack. Wyvern. Oh, no. Crazy action. You don't get a moment to breathe. Start of a book. But Xaden, he's the big bad, and he kills everyone. Not the heroes, obviously, but he kills all the venom, and we get some real juicy detail over the top drama where Xaden is like, no, I'm too dangerous, and Violet is like, no, but I love you, but do you love me? And Xaden goes, you're my very reason for breathing, and that's their dynamic most of this book. And, like, while it is over the top and syrupy, I almost didn't mind it. And I think it's because I'll take syrupy and overdramatic over having the same fight 10 times any day. And also, I can't say anything. I am the exact same with my partner. When my partner calls me, it says, the light of my darkest days is like his company in my phone. So who am I to judge? Anyway, and I think it's important to note, like, this series has kind of always been this way, this overdramatic, over the top. Woe is me. Type energy. Again, fan fiction, under the covers, you got your flat tonight, you're kicking your feet. Like, those are the vibes, okay? Put on fuzzy socks. And I love that, okay? I do. Anyway, they defeat the Wyvern and go back to the regular college duties. Again, what are we gonna do? And our heroes are, like, almost charged with treason because they, like, interfered with the ward stone, which is the ward protecting Basgaiath, which they're like, oh, that's why the Wyvern can come in, blah, 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 right? Or did they alter it after? No. But Violet is very clever, and she purposely left her lightning patch there at the scene, because she's only a lightning wielder. She waited until after she was, like, privately pardoned by my notes say the sensorium, and that's not what they're called. They're the guys in charge. What are their names? I can't believe I didn't catch that changed. Scenarium. I'm gonna get that wrong. Anyway, the scenarium. They're just the guys in charge, okay? But they admit because of her, they saved the school, and so she was like pardoned, but she was like, oh, it was only me, no one else messed with the ward stone. Only I did it, and you just pardoned me for all of my crimes for right before this moment. So, which I thought was clever, and it made Xaden horny. This is also where we learned that Xaden has become a duke again, now that everyone knows that Erasia and Tyrandor exist and they weren't burned to the ground, that he was given his title back, and now he's a duke, and now he's also part of not the sensorium, scenarium. But yeah, no, so now he has a seat on the scenarium, which again, like, who are the scenarium? It's kind of like the government, but also they're in charge of the school. They're in charge, okay? In this meeting, Violet also gives Andarna's list of demands to the scenarium, because Andarna has now been revealed to be a 7th type of dragon, and Violet and Andarna are like, well, we want to go and seek out more Irids. They learn it's named Irid, because now that it's been revealed, they want to go out and seek more of Andarna's kind, because Andarna thinks that she can burn Venom. Venom are fireproof, but she was able to burn one alive, and she thinks it's because she was mid-shift. She can, like, change the color of her scales. Camouflage. And she was mid-shifting and was able to burn one, so they're like, oh, it's a secret weapon. And so they want to go and in search for more Irids. And it took me way too long to realize Irids was short for iridescent, and it pissed me the hell off, because Wub, my partner, the second I said Irid, went, oh, iridescent, and I went, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. Like, what do you mean you got that right away? Because I did not. And so if you also didn't realize right away that Irid was short for iridescent, you're not alone. Anyway, since Andarna is the only known Irid and has proven that she can kill Venom, she has, like, a lot of sway in this conversation, right? She has a whole list of demands. One of them was, like, I love Andarna. One of them was, like, I want to be able to hunt on the king's grounds whenever I want. Because I want to see if they'll say yes. Huge highlight of these books, the dragons. They're so sassy, they're so silly, I love them so much, they all have their own individual personality, it's great. Anyway, she has a lot of sway, and they want to go on this mission, okay? And we're going to come back to this mission in a second, because I wanted to call out one of my favorite moments of this book, and I have no idea if this comes before or after the whole scenarium thing, because again, I didn't start taking notes till chapter 13, so. But our heroes are trying to get the flyers to be accepted by the other riders, right? But the riders are really prejudiced, and they're like, you're not one of us, you didn't cross the parapet, like, you have no respect amongst us, which again, the parapet, they could go cross it. They could. Also, not only that, you know, whatever. But they're like, they won't accept them, and tension keeps building. People are saying slurs. I don't know if they are, but I think they are. But this is spearheaded by one person in particular, named Aura, who apparently has been here the entire time. I've never seen this girl in my life, so, but she's an asshole the entire book, okay? And at this moment, she's challenging Dane specifically, because Dane is the wing leader of 4th Wing. She's challenging Dane for, like, authority or, like, status, basically saying, I'm the strongest one, and if you can defeat me, like, you can prove your worth, basically. You can prove the worth of your squad behind you, right? Prove you're better than me for us to accept you. But Aura wants to fight using signets because she's a fire wielder. Now, Dane doesn't have anything like that. Dane can read memories if he touches you. Not good in a fight at all. But he is a good wing leader, and he does not back down. He's like, sure, I'll fight you. Even if you use your signet and I don't, I'll fight you. Good leader move on Dane's part. I like Dane. I know a lot of people are like, man, fuck that guy. I started liking him back in Iron Flame, I will say. It took one line. The second he started helping Violet, I was like, he is a good friend. But, oh, yeah, also, his signet is secret, so even if he wanted to use it in a fight, he can't. It's a secret. But, anyway, this leads to Violet. So Violet gives this big inspirational speech where she's basically like, oh, no, if you want to fight the biggest, baddest bitch around using signets, Oh, then you're fighting me, bitch. You're fighting him. And she's like wielding lightning and stuff, her fingers are crackling. It's really cool. And I got chills. Oh my god. She is so pissed off that no one can see the bigger picture. That why are we fighting each other? We are at war. Like, civilians are dying. Why are we fighting each other? Which, like, incredibly valid. Incredibly valid. No idea why you guys were allowed to kill each other beforehand. Personally, if writers are so valuable and are becoming fewer and more, and less dragons are, like, willing to bond, don't see why you're allowed to kill another rider, even if they're not in your wing. Like, I know they had, like, this weird rule of, like, you can't kill anyone in your squad or in your wing, but, like, you guys realize you're on the same side, right? Like, because once you guys graduate, you are actively going to an active war with each other, and if, like, you were trying to kill me all throughout college, no, I'm not gonna trust you to have my back on the battlefield, bruh. Like, the hell? Even if they're in another wing, you don't know who you're gonna end up working with. You have a whole life after. Like, it never made sense to me. I was just along for the ride, but it pissed my partner off so much. Anyway, I know that's a big point of criticism. I've seen it. Everyone's like, why do they want to kill each other? But whatever, alright? It feels like this moment was that finally being addressed. Again, in the Rebecca Yarros thing of using something to address something, critique in previous book. That's what this felt like. This moment is, hey, I heard you. I see you. No one's allowed to kill each other anymore. I got you. See, war is happening. And I will say it did feel like a natural progression for this, like, plot hole / illogical plot point. It felt like a natural progression for this to get solved. It didn't feel like forced or anything. And the speech Violet gives, I mean it when I say it gave me chills. Because also it takes her a moment to realize that she's the most powerful signet wielder. Like, that's a big theme in this book, is that, oh, babe, you have to be in charge. Taryn is a dragon general, like, and you're one of the most powerful wielders of the generation. You're either going to step into your power, or you're going to be dragged into your power kicking and screaming, but you have to be there no matter what, right? And so this was her actively stepping into that leadership role, and so good. So good. And I'm not even gonna front with y'all. Like, I got a little teary-eyed, okay? Don't touch me. This is a safe space. But I got a little teary-eyed. Like, it meant a lot to me, okay? And I find that it's hard to write characters who are know-it-alls, who are quick learners and badass, and can learn anything and take down people bigger than them, and still have that character grow and change and make meaningful steps to growing into, like, adulthood, even if they are adults, like growing into later adulthood, you know. And this felt like one of Violet's big growth moments. So that's my girl, and that's my girl, and I'm so proud of her. Like, what do you want from me? But anyway, back to the mission. Darna thinks that she can kill Venom, but she has no idea how. She only has, like, the working theory, but it's not like she's gonna have a chance to check, because remember, Darna is still a very young dragon, and they don't tend to let her into battles. That's never stopped her before, but they try not to let her into battle. But that's one of the reasons why they want to go find the Irids. You know, a weapon, an ally, a answer to a mystery that they're trying to solve, okay? And Darna wants to go find the Irids because she's the only one left. She has no family, she has no den. And so learning from the other dragons, she's missing that sense of kinship, that sense of family. And yes, Taryn, Sigel, Violet, and Xaden to some degree is a family to her. Like, the 5 of them do have, like, a little family unit. But that's not the same as learning your family history. That's not the same as learning all the tips and tricks that have been passed down through generations and generations, and, like, what your powers can actually do, right? And so that's what she's yearning for, as would I. And Violet, because she was so clever about leaving the evidence and getting the pardon and blah 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 as they're talking about this mission, the queen thinks that she's a really clever girl and, like, grants her access to her library. Because one of, like, Darna's demands was Violet gets access to the king's library. The queen is like, you can have access to mine too, and mine's better, so. And so now Violet has access to 2 royal libraries from 2 kingdoms, in hopes to see if she can find either how to kill the Venom or how to cure the Venom. Our girl's looking for a cure for Xaden, of course she is. All the while she is saying, because it is, she's saying that she's looking for research on the Irids, again, trying to kill the venom, which is true to a degree, but she wants to see if she can find a cure first. And see, I like this. It is a nice, clear, concise mission. You know what everyone gets out of completing the mission, and you know what the next steps are going to be. Nice, clear, concise. We want to go to the islands outside of the wards to search for the Irids, and also at the same time find any information they can about the venom. We love to see it. And personally, I think that this is a great setup for a middle book. The plot is fairly contained, which is important for a book in a series. Each book should be able to stand up on their own. For the most part, of course, there's important context between books because it's one continuous story. You should be able to have the adventure and the stakes still make sense in the standalone book, right? While also still building on the world we already know. Like, we're still adding to the greater mystery and the greater problem, right? And if it's not a contained story, then it's not satisfying to read, so readers aren't going to go on to the next book anyway. I know, but if it doesn't build on the world that we already know, then readers really have no incentive to go to the next book or go back and see what else have I missed. And I'm jumping a bit ahead here, but we end up visiting a bunch of the islands outside of the worlds, right? Well, each island is based on one of the gods that we've been hearing about from the last books, because in Navarre, in the continent, in the big city, they don't talk about gods much, but they are still part of the everyday vernacular. They're still in the zeitgeist. So we've heard about them, and we know Malik is like the god of death, and things like that. And we've heard about some more than others, but to have each island based on a god, and for each island to have a different trial based on a god and what they represent and how that influences and shapes the culture, I thought it was interesting. Okay, I liked it. A lot of people said like, oh, this part is like repetitive, I just wanted to go through it. We're just going island, trial. Have a little whimsy, okay? I thought it was cool. Like, personally, I love video games. I love culture. I like learning how each island is devoted to a different god and how does that shape their culture and how does it shape their society. I think it's cool. It's not perfect, but it's cool. And some people are already drawing comparisons. It's like, oh, there are 7 gods. There are 7 dragons. Just saying. And I think that's cool. That's why I want to go back. I want to go back and gather all the information from the gods that we know. I'll gather all the information from the dragons. You know, I want to try my hand at theory crafting. And I will say that this book, it felt like a bridge, which it should. It is book 3. But it didn't just feel like a bridge in the series. It felt like a bridge from romantasy into a more traditional fantasy setting. And I was really excited to see where it goes before I read the ending, but we'll get there. But currently we're still in the romantasy genre, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that Xaden, in an attempt to stay within the wards of Bath Gaius to help tamper the magic addiction that he's like suffering right now, he ends up taking a job as a professor at Bath Gaius. So now we got the teacher-student trope. How many more tropes can these two fill, honestly? So to recap, we had enemies to lovers, semi-fake dating, and now student-teacher relationships. Taking bets now, what do you think the next one's going to be? I have my thoughts, but we'll get there. And Violet immediately clocks that, like, oh my god, we can't be in a relationship if you're a teacher. And Xaden's like, don't worry about it, I've done paperwork, I'm on my way to the scenario to, like, get the exception because it's a pre-existing relationship, plus our dragons are mated, like, it's fine. And he is on the way. And the now General Atos, Dane's dad, the supervillain of this book, just tells them no. And I'm here, like, are they not just married? They're in a committed relationship, which has been a year now, 18 months, something like that. But they're in a relationship. Their dragons are fully mated. Are they not as good as married? Is it just because they're not in, like, a good Christian marriage? Like, what do you mean? Like, how are you allowed to turn that down? no, sir, you can't kiss your wife or you're gonna be expelled. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean, Ados? And, like, literally, Violet at one point, like, tells someone, don't remember who, she tells someone, I was like, oh, no, that's not my boyfriend. Because, again, they're not dating because they're teachers and students. But she goes, no, that's not my boyfriend. And he interjects in her head and is like, yeah, that's too casual for what we are. And I'm here like, yeah, because y'all are married in every way that matters except Christian. What do you mean? Ah! And I will also like to take this moment to point out that Xaden being a professor, unfortunately, is the only time that I've considered him hot. I'm sorry. Talent is sexy, and he gets to, like, show off being talented in front of people. Like, that's really it, you know? And, again, talent is sexy, okay? And it's not important for the video, but I personally have never found Xaden hot. He's not my type. And that's fine. And this is a problem that I personally, me, in my little noggin, that I have with romance books in general. Again, I write romance books, so I think about this a lot. But, in general, when a man is presented as perfect with his chiseled jaw and his scorching eyes, I'm like, ew, get him away from me. I don't know why. Like, if I saw a man with scorching eyes and rippling biceps, I would just feel uncomfortable. I just would. And not to say that, like, I think I'm an ugly duckling or anything. No, I'm very comfortable in my skin. I think I'm cute as hell. I think I'm hot. I don't know. They just make me uncomfy. Look like a real person. Consider. Please. Anyway, this is the first time that Xaden, like, didn't get on my nerves. I actually, like, found him attractive, and I liked him a lot. And there are way more moments of him being, like, sweet and gentle and, like, a good partner, and, like, a real person. And while, yes, it could be syrupy and over the top and blah, 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 I will take that over scorching perfection any day. And, like, literally at one point, he gives her a bath and detangles her hair, and he just cares for her, and there's no spice involved. There's no insinuation of spice, and there might have been a little. No spice involved, and it's, I don't know. I just think that's important to have in romance books, like, these moments of tenderness. In my professional opinion, I think it's important. Anyway, back to Professor Xaden. He's professor of channeling combat, or, like, wielding combat. I forget the name that they use. But, like, I read it, and I was like, how is that different than their regular channeling training / like, their regular combat training? Like, do they go to all 3 classes, or was it all combined into one class? So what happened to the 2 other teachers? They could be dead. I forget who teaches what, I will say. They could be dead, and that's why there's an opening. But, yeah, no, I realized, like, oh yeah, no. What else do they learn? Like, they learn history. Anyway, they also learn physics. Not important. Oh my god. But speaking of wielding, Violet, the entire book, does talk about how if she's not in class, if she is not actively working on the mission, and not sleeping, then she is working on wielding, and she's practicing using her signet, and she's exhausted all the time because she stayed up so late last night, and Carr pushed her so much, and she pushed herself so much, and it's just mentioned, like, a million times throughout the book. Like this gets brought up a lot, and I've seen people, because by the end of the book, like, she has gotten better, and I've seen people be like, when did she get better? And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, why do you think she was so tired all the time? Like, yes, there's a lot of stressful things happening, and, like, yes, they're, like, on missions, but she's still practicing, you know? Well, not on the mission, she's not practicing because there's no magic. Not important. Anyway, like, do I wish we could have seen a couple of these sessions where it's either just her in Carr or just her by herself? Like, yes. But I think they're talked about enough, and we see enough of the improvement that, like, it's fine. It's there. Like, you can't say it's not there. You can't say she got better out of nowhere. Like, she's actively doing this all the time. And I wanted to call that out because this is something that I really like in these books, is that Violet has to work at getting better, and she has to learn how to make things accessible, and we see her work, and we see her fail, and we see her get better, and it feels like a natural progression, and I just wanted to call that out. I like it. Now we're in a chunk where, like, a lot of things happen, and we're just gonna condense it, because this isn't a recap video. I don't know what this is. a review, one might say. But we're going to condense it because it's a lot of information. So we learn all the rebel kids, because if you've forgotten, in the last war, there was a rebellion, and the kids of the people who rebelled got branded evil. But all the rebel kids have second signets, and something we learn throughout the book. Zane originally says a couple of them might, and we learn by the end, no, all of them do. We learn that Xaden opens up the borders of Erasia / Tyrandor, because I think Tyrandor is the country and Erasia is the city. But he opens up the borders to refugees, because just outside the wards of Navarre, there is an active war happening. Civilians are dying. People are fleeing countries left, right, and center. And towns that are on the border, that a lot of our kids have family in, are being attacked constantly. And Navarre and Bathgaiath aren't opening up their wards. It's too big a risk, we can't let people in, and that really upsets Violet, and in response, Xaden's like, well, fuck you guys, and opens them up, and they start taking in refugees. So there's that, and then Violet becomes leader of the Special Task Force, and gets to pick and lead her own squad. Now, the reason this happens is because Grady, another man I don't know, originally was leading the task force, and on their first mission, he died. So do you remember Aura, the asshole who wanted to fight? Well, she, again, is an asshole this entire book, and, part of that is she is just kind of following Xaden and Violet around, trying to catch them in a relationship, even though everyone knows that they were in a relationship before he was a teacher. But she was put on the original mission, and this is her first mission. Violet has done missions, she's left Bathgaiath before, and Aura hasn't. And honestly, I thought this was going to be a heist. And I was disappointed that it wasn't, okay? It was set up as if they were going to plan, this jewel heist. But anyway, they end up going after a citrine jewel. Citrine is a yellow stone, but it's a citrine on a chain, basically. But they want to use this tool as a bargaining chip to bring to one of the kings on the Isles, because they need to trade something clever, and last time they wanted to trade dragons and blah, 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 blah. So they're like, okay, well, this is valuable. This is something they would want, right? But where the jewel was, there was also a letter from Theophany, which I'm really glad I did read the audiobook, because even though my name is Persephone, I still would have read this as Theophone. I don't know what you want from me, okay? I don't. Anyway, because this is Aura's first letter, she gets, really jumpy, and Violet is trying to talk her down and be like, hey man, keep yourself nice and relaxed, because if something happens, you need to be ready, if you're tense, it's, breathe, basically. But Aura is an asshole and is like, fuck you, no, I don't wanna. And so when Grady walks out of a nearby building like a normal person at a completely reasonable pace, she lights him on fire. As one does. And not just him, but the entire town. She lights the entire town on fire. And, that part wasn't intentional, but the town was so dry and desolate, and it's windy, and Violet was trying to tell her, hey, be careful, because everything is dry and it's windy. So she burns the entire place down, while also alerting their position to local venom and wyvern, and now they're under attack. Good job, Aura. You did it. And unfortunately for Aura, she ends up getting skewered through the heart from a wyvern, very soon after this. She doesn't even escape the town. And I only bring this up because I genuinely was really mad that she died so fast. I kind of wish that she was left alone to suffer with the consequences of her actions, because Jesus Christ, did she get on my nerves? And does that make me a bad person? Jury's still out. But all of this, because Grady dies, because the mission is such a spectacular failure, Violet is allowed, finally, to be in charge and bring her own squad, which includes Violet, Xaden, Dane, Garrick, Riddick, Kat, Tager, Drake, don't know who that is, apparently he's Kat's cousin, Marin, who is Kat's best friend, and Mira and Holden, who is Violet's ex, and also the Prince of Navarre, and also Eric's twin, T. Go off, Violet, get that prince dick, except he is such a dick, oh my god. He literally almost gets them killed because of his, dickery. Sir, get your shit together. Also, he cheated on Violet. Like, she walked in on him with someone else. Anyway, does that make the behavior in the last book a little bit more understandable about the whole thing with trust and tell me everything? Yes. Do I still think it went on too long? Yes. Yes, I do. Thanks for asking, though. And I was honestly going to completely glaze over the whole Holden thing because he gets replaced with R very soon after this. But I must bring him up because of how much trouble he gets them all in. Oh my god. It's astounding. He's so talented. Okay, so in Deverelli. Where's Deverelli? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't have the book. I don't have the map. Google it. So in Deverelli, there is a bookshop. Again, Violet. There's so much context to this. Violet, Dane, betrays his father, helps Violet, gets her dad's old research that was left in the general's private quarters because her mom, that was her quarters, and she asked Dane to go up and snatch her father's journals before everything gets burned because all their stuff needs to get burned after someone dies, right? Okay. In this, she learns she has to go to, in Deverelli, there is a bookshop, and she has to go pick up books that are only meant for Violet that her dad left for her. Convoluted. And to get the books, she has to answer a bunch of questions to prove that she is ready, right? Video game ass plot. Mwah! We love to see it. And it only brings up the questions because the little old lady sees Violet be snuggled up with someone and is like, oh, so you must be Dane. It's nice to finally put a face to the name. And everyone's really awkward about it, and it's actually quite funny. Because he's like, no, I'm Dane. Like, on the far side of the group. No, that's me. Sorry. I love that. But anyway, while they're doing that, Xaden is going to meet with the king to try to garner alliance because remember, war is happening, in case you forgot. And he gets himself kidnapped because he cannot help himself from being a little shit. And so now, Xaden has to go because he's the only other person of royal blood. Kat is also a descendant of royal blood, but they're like, let's let Xaden handle this first, and then if we need a backup, we'll go to Kat, right? So Xaden has to go talk to the king to try to barter back the crown prince. And he brings Violet, and they're like, no, only royalty is allowed in the house. And he goes, she's my consort. And what? And with no hesitation, rolls off his tongue, to which she is shocked, and I am once again asking, are you guys not basically married in all the ways that matter besides Christian? Why are you shocked? Violet, have a poker face for the love of God. Anyway, Xaden hates Holden, especially since he's learned that he, cheated on Violet, so he hates his guts, as we all do, and he ends up losing control at, the dinner table. Also because the king, I think, threatens Violet. The king has multiple White Panthers, and they're, his besties, and he doesn't want the citrine jewel. He's like, this, tacky. You got it on sale. I don't want it. So Xaden ends up losing control, and Violet, she carries around a conduit because, again, she's practicing her wielding whenever she can, which, if you don't know what a conduit is, it's basically the world's worst stress ball. It's a glass ball on a tether that can go around your wrist, and it has magic alloy in it, and the magic alloy is metal infused with magic, okay? And the conduit ends up breaking, and so he's able to get to the alloy and sucks up that magic drug, baby. He's basically on speed and is able to go apeshit and start killing people, alright? And he kills everyone besides the king, Holden, and the cats. Now Violet is like, you motherfucker. And she tells him, hang your head in shame. Be embarrassed. While she tries to figure shit out, right? And so he does, and he's like, oh no. And so she apologizes, and she's like, I'm so sorry, we're trained to be weapons first, we're not trained to be diplomats, we are riders at the end of the day. It was not intentional, it is just a matter of reflex. And she is able to smooth things over with the king. And by smooth things over, I mean she has Andarna pick up one of the king's prized kitties, the White Panthers, and she's just holding the panther in her mouth, threatening to go, hungry. She's a hungry girl. And they just do that until Andarna is, drooling, and the king just has to agree. She has to do what she says. Icons, both of them, honestly. And in exchange, because they do still want to honor, in exchange of valuable goods for an alliance, she does give him pieces of Andarna's shell from when she was a baby. And she says, like, with her permission, this is my dragon. She is the only of her kind, or the only known one of her kind. And she has Andarna do, like, a camouflage effect. And she's like, with her permission, I would like to gift you pieces of her shell. It is incredibly rare and valuable, and it's the only one of its kind. What you can do about it? And so they do, and that's how they're able to forge alliance with Deverelli. Check. And I bring up this entire thing, because again, I was going to gloss over the whole Holden thing, but I bring this up because of this, Xaden's onyx eyes are now flecked with amber instead of gold. Which is the same color, but go off violet. But Violet is the only one looking longingly into his eyes at any given moment, so I will take her word for it that she can notice this very slight change in hue. But do you know who else has amber eyes? Brannon! Violet's brother. Just saying. It's interesting. Gets you thinking. That's all. And, like, I didn't realize that till I was making the script, and I was like, oh, wait a second, someone else has amber eyes, and I had to go and Google it, and it let me down a theory hole, let me just say that. Anyway, and see, like, this is the thing. I'm hinting, not so subtly, at a possible theory that we're going to talk about later, okay? And this book gives us a lot to theorize about, and I love that. Neither of the past two books made me want to theorize. I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person who I'm just along for the ride. Whatever story you wanted to tell me. Please, take my hand and let's go. And the fact that I want to theorize, I think, is just a testament to how much groundwork is being laid here and how much this book wants you to ask questions. And it's not flawless, of course, but good things rarely are, because to have faults is to be human. But it's fun, and it's interesting, and it chews on my brain the way that makes me go vroom. Which is why I want to talk about it. It's literally why we're here. We're not going to talk about all the Isles in depth, but we are going to touch on the Isle of Dune. I think it's the one they go to next. It's the one they go to next. And that's because everyone here has silver hair. Like, everyone. Everyone here has silver hair. And this is another moment where the audiobook gave me chills. The woman who read the audiobook, I don't know if off the dome, I can find it. I own the book. I forgot. Jasmine Walker, you did fantastic, babe. Oh my god, it's so good. And so, for the Isle of Dune, the trial that they have to pass is by combat, with Dune being the goddess of war, basically. And Xaden, as their best fighter, steps up and he's like, well, has to be me. But the High Priestess of Dune is like, no, yes, you can step up. But Dane is also chosen, and she nicks him with the blade the same way she did Xaden. And she's still walking around and she's still talking. And then she nicks Violet with the blade the way that she did Dane and Xaden. So now all three of them are fighting. Dane gets knocked out pretty early on, again. He's a smarts guy. He's not a fighting guy. He's decent, but he's a brain guy. But Xaden is holding his own. And Violet, the woman that she is, but she ends up fighting a woman who is, like, significantly bigger than her. Cause remember, Violet's tiny. But she is able to pin her to the ground using leverage, which, because she's smaller, pisses off the woman. And Violet ends up also having to save Xaden's life. Again, Violet, the woman you are. But while having this woman on the ground, she looks over, sees Xaden's about to get his neck sliced, takes a knife, flips it, throws it, pins the guy's hand, goes back to screaming at the woman that she has on the ground. Just screaming at her to yield. I love this scene. It's so fun. And her anger is rising and building because this woman is trying to get under her skin. She's trying to piss her off. And she's screaming for her to yield, and suddenly lightning strikes right next to them, which shouldn't be possible because there is no magic on this island. And it makes the woman yield. And it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. It's such a good moment, dude. But it turns out that the woman that Violet was fighting is the queen of the Isle of Dune. So that's fun that you had the queen that you're meant to make an alliance with. You had her pinned to the ground, screaming, hitting her face into the dirt. Love that. And honestly, the Isles do have, like, names. I don't know them. Not my problem. We're here to talk about themes, baby. But anyway, just remember, Isle of Doom, everyone has silver hair. And Violet actually ends up seeing a child who has half hair like her. So she has brown hair up here, and then the ends of her braids are silver, just like our girly. So we're going to take that thought, pick it up, and put it in the questions corner, and we'll go there later. Okay. And because our heroes were able to win in the battle, they do forge a tentative alliance. It's not a real alliance, because what the queen wanted is the queen wants dragon eggs, which is why they couldn't forge an alliance last war either. But the riders refused to agree. They're like, we can't do that for you. The dragons are sentient beings, first off. They'll never agree, and so we will never agree. Like, we can't do that. And so because of that, there's no, like, actual military alliance, but they're like, if you guys want to crash on the island, you can. Like, we're not going to bother you. Like, you're allowed to rest and recuperate and water your steeds and everything like that. But they want dragon eggs because they think that they would be able to beat into submission baby dragons. Which, personally, I would just give them the eggs and let natural selection run its course, because obviously it would. But our heroes aren't like that, you know? They're really appalled, and they're like, no, what are you talking about? Anyway, the next isle is the Isle of Wisdom, where, dun dun dun, Xaden's mom is. She's there, she's married to the king. It's awkward and it's sad, and learning about Xaden's, mom's life story made me sick to my gut. So there's that. It's so interesting because, like, we see Xaden's mom and her story through Violet's eyes and through Xaden's commentary, and they're not on mom's side, right? But hearing about this woman who felt so horribly trapped and who was married young, they don't say how young, but they say young, for an alliance that was out of her control and a marriage of convenience, and then once that contract was up and she just wanted to go home with her son, but she wasn't allowed to take her son or talk to her son, and was effectively kicked out of Tyrrendor. Like, that just sucks. It just sucks. And it makes my heart hurt, like, really badly for her, because she had the option of, you can leave and never see your son again, or you can stay and be what we assume is abused. But also the contract is up, so, like, the marriage is done. So you also now have no protection, and you still might not be able to see your son. So weigh your two options. Be sonless in either one. Insane. And it just made my heart hurt so bad. And not only that, but, like, she remembers how much Xaden loved chocolate cake. Like, she's never not thought about Xaden. Like, that is her son. And so she remembers that he loves chocolate cake. And the Isles, the second the riders show up to the first one, to Deverelli, word travels quickly. And so while they were waiting for the riders to finally make it to the Isle of Wisdom, every time a shipment of chocolate came in, Mom would buy all of the chocolate, all of it, and save it, because it's a very rare thing that you only get, like, little bits of chocolate. But she would bulk buy as much as possible and save it, so when they did finally show up, she could make him a chocolate cake for his birthday, even though his birthday's like a few months out. But she wanted to do that for him because she remembered how much he likes it. It makes me sad, okay? And not only that, but, like, to do all that, then just to have your husband, who promised your son and his friends a safe trial, to have him then poison the cake without you knowing. Oh my god. And only Garrick gets poisoned, because Violet is suspicious. She sees that, like, oh, you guys aren't touching the cake. Why do you keep talking about the cake? If this is a trial, like, something's wrong. And so only Garrick takes a bite of the cake, and she's obviously preoccupied trying to find an antidote, because she's the one reading on all the history of the Isles, and she does find an antidote. But the entire time, Xaden's mom, like, is back against the wall, sobbing, curling in on herself, because in her mind, she just betrayed her son using his favorite thing that she, like, worked really hard to kind of get for him, and she failed him again. Like, even though it's not her fault, like, from what we see, it feels like she's blaming herself. You know what I mean? Like, she's there sobbing and crying, not knowing what to do. And again, we see glimpses because Violet is preoccupied. But she's on the ground sobbing, thinking she betrayed her son, using his favorite thing, and that she failed him again because Garrick is like a brother to him, and she's seeing that, how distraught it's making Xaden, and oh my god. And on top of that, the way that Violet is able to secure an alliance with the king, even after she shoves the fig down Garrick's throat to heal him, the only way she secures an alliance is because she's like, oh yeah, no, if you look outside, there's only 6 dragons there. There's supposed to be 7. Do you want to know what the 7th one is? It's at your mom's house, you bitch. She knows what you're like, and she's hungry. Because Andarna is just hungry this entire book. Me too, baby. So not only does she think that she failed her son, but now her other son's lives are also being threatened. Like, and she can't do anything, because, like, this has nothing to do with her. So she's sitting there sobbing, having to wonder, am I going to lose all of my children right now? Oh my god! That, it stresses me out so badly. And, like, I'm sure she could have tried to do something. I'm sure someone's gonna make the argument. Like, she could have stand up, she could have said something. But, like, this feels like a trauma response. This feels like she's recognizing, oh my god, everything is once again out of my control, and I don't know what's gonna happen, there's nothing I can do to protect my kids. That's what this feels like to me, and it made me so upset. Oh my god. It made me sick to my stomach. And I say that as a compliment. Because, again, Garrick is, like, actively poisoned on the ground, and all I can think about is Xaden's mom. But fucking Christ! Justice for Xaden's mom. I'm sorry I forgot your name. I didn't write it down. And, like, this feels important to me because there's a huge theme in this book, if you haven't caught on. There's a huge theme about marriage and lineage and heirs and a lot about, like, children inheriting their parents' issues and generational trauma, which is a very trendy topic right now in general. My camera died. I'm so sorry. I have to go charge the battery. But we are pinning this thought and putting it in our serious questions corner, okay? Now we have 2 corners going. We have the questions corner and then the serious thoughts corner, okay? Cool. Dude, how do other YouTubers, like, record 8-hour long things? My camera batteries last an hour at most. And they take like 3 hours to charge. If you also film excessively long videos where you just talk forever, what is your battery situation like? Asking for a friend. Okay, so we're moving on to the aisles. So next aisle, the Aisle of Luck, where everyone has to get a gift and you're not allowed to complain. You can't complain about your gift, you can't complain about someone else's gift. And so Violet gets a broken black compass, Xaden gets like an empty box, Drake gets a kitten, and Catriona gets a dead boyfriend. Yeah, so on this mission, Traeger and Catriona started dating. They, like, very recently became official, and Traeger gets shot in the heart, and they all have to smile and say thank you. All while Traeger's griffin is collapsing, screaming, crying out in pain, and slowly dying. I'm saying Catriona gets the short end of the stick all the time. Justice for Catriona. But at least they got 40,000 troops out of the Alliance, I guess. Jesus. But because of this, Catriona requests that they fly to demands that they fly to an uninhabited island to burn Traeger out of respect. And Traeger and his griffin. Because that's what they do. And Violet is like, I will give you anything you want. Oh my god, I am so sorry. I couldn't imagine living with this. Anything you need, we will do. Because she feels guilty. Like, she's the leader, and, like, Traeger was under her responsibility, and while it is luck, that was the point, she still feels like it's her fault, you know what I mean? But on this island, while they're waiting for Traeger to finish burning, they decide, 1, to rest, 2, to split up, and, like, well, we might as well check the island for Irids. Someone fly an hour that direction, you guys fly an hour that direction, I'll wait for the body to finish burning, and then we're gonna fly an hour in this direction, you know? And the Irids are like, ask and you shall receive, because apparently, the Irids have been following them this entire time. From island to island, they have just been there. Which, I wish that this was hinted at beforehand, because it is a little Dragon Ex Machina, you know what I mean? That they just appear, ready to answer questions, but I think, especially if Violet, like, had this creeping feeling, she's like, no, I saw something on the horizon, I saw a bush move, and because she's bonded with Andarna, like, maybe she's a little more observant, you know what I mean? Like, even if she doesn't know what it is, even, like, she's not gonna think, oh, the Irids, they're following us. Like, no, because that's an insane thing to think. But if something caught her attention once or twice on these missions, like, that's what I would want it, for this reveal to feel more earned. And she could have. She absolutely could have. And I just not notice. You know what I mean? That's very possible because a lot of stuff happens in these books. Oh my god. But I wish it was hinted at a little beforehand. Because I don't mind it happening, personally. Like, there's so much that has to happen. I don't mind this happening. I just wanted a little shimmer in the distance. A moment of, I'm so stupid, how could I not have seen this coming? Because who would have seen this coming? But also, maybe there are pieces before, you know? But like I said, this absolutely could have been seeded in the other books, and I'm stupid and just not have seen it. Either way, the Irids hate Andarna. So I hate them. So, they hate Andarna. They hate that Andarna is not a pacifist, because the Irids are pacifists by nature, which, like, again, the whole idea of children inheriting their parents' issues, Andarna can only be what she was raised with. Why would you think that she was a pacifist? Like, what are you talking about? And, like, they're scandalized that she chooses to present as a black dragon. They're scandalized that she has a scorpion tail, instead of the feather tails, because they all choose to keep feather tails as they grow into adulthood. And they're like, no, we left you there as a barometer. They don't use the word barometer, they use something else. But we left you there as a barometer to see if the humans could actually change, and they can't. They can't. They'll never change. They'll always be like this. And I'm there like, just because you're a pacifist doesn't mean you need to be stupid. Like, get your shit together. What did you think was going to happen? She's a baby. Anyway. But, because Andarna is Andarna, and everyone loves Andarna, a couple of them do want to hear her out, and they do want to hear her life story, you know what I mean? She does end up telling them her life story, and then they realize, like, why are you like this? She tells them everything. And a few of them fly away in disgust. But a couple of them stay, and they give her the benefit of the doubt, because Violet is like, I did not know that she was a baby. We don't know what baby dragons look like, because they're so precious that they're kept in the veil. We have no knowledge of that. And when she bonded with me, I did not know. I just thought she was another dragon, right? And the fact that, like, the reason why that Andarna even bonded with Violet to begin with is because Violet saw her about to be attacked, and even though she was horribly outnumbered, got in the way anyway, and wasn't gonna let her be killed. Was gonna try to not let her be killed, right? And so, like, they start to come around, and they start to listen, and then Xaden shows up, and they literally hiss and run away like big cats. They're like, evil, and run. And this is how Riddick finds out that Xaden has started turning. Amazing. And Riddick, who is known for being the funny guy, pulls Violet aside into, like, the privacy of the forest, and is like, tell me everything. You can't keep this a secret. We promise no more secrets. Like, what is going on with you? And he ends up pushing her to promise to tell the rest of their friends, because they have to lean on one another. They are already dealing with so much. Secrets between the squad is just not, that's not how they roll, you know? And he also, I actually really like this, he forces her to draw a line in the sand. What is the thing that Xaden can do where you know he has gone too far? Because you might not see it, but I can. And that's what friends are for, is we protect one another. What is the line in the sand? Tell me. Not even line in the sand. I think, what is the line that he could cross? He, like, you love him too much. I don't. So let me protect you when you won't be able to. And Violet very quietly goes, if he ever hurts me, then I know he is not Xaden. Which, if that's not Chekhov's gun, I don't know what is. But also, valid. But also, define hurt. Like, Are we talking, like, emotionally? Because she's saying, like, oh, he'll never hurt me. But weren't you guys fighting a lot in the last book? Does that not count? I'm just asking. I'm just asking, okay? Asking. But also, maybe, let's not let it get that far. Consider, maybe draw a line a little bit further. Because if he hurts you, and he's turned full venom, he's not just hurting, he's gonna kill you. You know what I mean? There isn't, like, levels to this. Either he's turned and killing you, or he's still your Xaden. Like, can we get the line a little bit further away? Just a smidge. But not my place. It's not my place to say, I guess. I also want to point out, because this did make me laugh, Violet and Riddick are fighting, and lightning happens, because they're on an island that has a little bit of magic, and lightning strikes, and Riddick is, they come out of the forest, and Xaden's right there listening, because of course he is, not even 2 feet away, and he's right there lounging on a tree, like, it's just my daily lounge, like, what of it, and Riddick is like, hey, don't hurt her, you monster, I still want to kill you, but also, I do need you to know that lightning, we didn't do anything, we were just talking. Cool. And Xaden's like, no, I know you were just talking. It wasn't a big enough strike. And I was like, damn. You're right, but damn. Anyway, Isle's done. They go back to the college as failures because they only made one real alliance. Like, the other alliances were like, yeah, you have access to our resources. Yeah, you're welcome to stay here. And that's kind of it. Everyone else was, like, really wishy-washy. So they kind of failed at their mission. And that's a problem because they were meant to come back in between each isle. So they violated direct orders by just going isle to isle and just not telling anyone. So they're like a little bit of trouble, But also they brought back 40,000 warriors, so yeah, maybe it balances out. And we are gonna glaze over this next bit of them being back just because I only feel the need to call out 2 moments that feel important. One, they learn a new flying maneuver, because now that everyone knows that venom are real, now they're trying to alter their combat strategies to try to combat what they know of venom, right? So, there's a new flying maneuver where a rider, they come swooping down on their dragon, the rider jumps off, wields their signet, and attacks, or just attacks, if depending on what their signet is, and then run alongside the dragon, hop on the hind leg, and climb up, right? It's meant to be very quick, very agile, and I bring this up because Violet can't physically do this maneuver, because she got squishy joints. And so instead what she does is she jumps off Terran's foot, and he's able to, like, snatch her and, like, gently drop her so she doesn't, like, hit the ground, you know what I mean? She strikes with her lightning, and then runs with her arms out for Terran to snatch her, yeet her into the air, swoop under her, and catch her. And I'm bringing this up because the amount of people that get yeeted by dragons is not insignificant. Is not insignificant. Like, Violet gets snatched a couple times, and also Bodhi gets snatched, and it's never not funny. It's never not funny. Especially when you remember just how big these dragons are. Violet is my height. I'm 5'2". I think Violet's 5 foot, but, like, we're roughly the same height. And she goes up to Terran's ankle. So the height of his foot is 5 feet. Maybe. That's what I'm talking about lengthwise. Like, that's just the height. Like, it's so funny to me. It is so fucking funny to me. Anyway, the second thing that happens when they're back at school, Lynx becomes a shadow wielder. Do I know who this man is? Of course not. No. I don't think we're supposed to. Personally, like, in my mind, Violet starts talking about him, and I'm like, I've never seen this man before in my life. Oh my god, shadows! And then he goes on, never be spoken about again. But I bring it up because Xaden says magic knows. As if to say everything has to remain in balance, and another shadow wielder appearing, manifesting, means that magic knows that Xaden is going to turn and be the shadow wielder for the venom. Which if I was Violet, I would have thrown up. Like, what do you mean? My man is the shadow wielder of our generation. The strongest wielder of anyone on the continent. And now this little snot that's a year, 2 years younger than me has that power? Oh, I'd riot. Oh my god, no. I'm killing him. I'm killing him myself, no. And I'm bringing this up because it is the first instance of this book telling us I feel so bad for y'all because my camera stopped recording at the same time that my phone alarm to feed the baby went off, so you guys did not get to hear her scream. I'm sorry. I personally, I should have planned that better so you guys could have heard her start begging for food the second it became 5 o'clock. Anyway, we're talking about, right, the magic nose. So I bring this up because this moment, the book is asking us to look at what signets are in play. Because if magic is manifesting another shadow wielder to combat Xaden, that means that every wielder currently has an equal or opposite on the other side of the line. So what and who are we fighting? Truly, at the end of the day. Again, this book is forcing me to ask questions, and I don't know how I feel about it. Moving on. So Sawyer still hasn't been able to bring himself... kind of moving on. We're still talking about, like, that flight maneuver. So Sawyer, this entire time, has not been able to bring himself to ride, right? He's ashamed, and he feels a deep level of shame that his dragon could be seen as lesser because he can no longer perform as a rider the way he once did, right? And he doesn't want to shame his dragon. Like, his dragon means the world to him. That's his first love. He's still learning how to live while being disabled. And so he's been working on a prosthetic for himself. He's a metal wielder, so wood and metals, you know. And so he's working on his prosthetic leg. Again, I can only think of Hiccup with the leg that flops. Anyway. But he asks Violet for help. He wants to try this maneuver with no one else around. So that way he can learn and know he won't be judged when he falls flat on his face. Which I love. And I love this. Again, I'm someone who is currently learning to live with a disability. And as someone who is currently learning to live with a disability, like, I felt really seen because this is something that you have to learn. You have to learn to not be embarrassed, and you have to learn what accommodations do you need. Because you need them, and there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. And it's odd that, like, personally, I never saw shame in accommodations, ever. I never even thought twice about, if you need it, like, have it. Like, why shouldn't you have it? You know? That has always been my mindset. Whatever someone needs to make their life easier, why shouldn't they have it? That never made sense to me. But the second that I needed an accommodation, I was like, no, I'm not worth it. What are you talking about? No, how dare you? And thinking, like, no, I'm a burden. I'm nothing else but something wrong. And I had to learn that, no, like, it's fine. Like, I'm also deserving of accommodation the same way that I think everyone else is deserving of whatever can make their life easier, right? So I love this. I love this scene so much. And he feels ashamed that he's letting down his dragon. My boy. And it reminds me of the feeling of, like, oh, I've let my family down. I'm not who I once was. And the shame. And it's like, oh, you don't need to say this to me, Rebecca. God. Why are you attacking me? Ah. And this brings up, with Violet, someone who has lived with a chronic pain issue and a disability, so to say, like, her entire life, she has never thought about it, and she asked Taryn, like, have you ever felt embarrassed needing to kneel for me, like, needing to make accommodations for me? And Taryn gets so offended. He's like, how dare you think me, Taryn, would ever succumb to embarrassment or whatever spare passing thought for someone else might think. I am Taryn. And then he starts to list all of his accolades, and, like, in those accolades he lists, like, his ruthless wife, and I snorted. What do you say? He's like, my mate is unparalleled in her ruthlessness. Something along those lines. And I snorted out loud. We love a wife guy. We love a wife guy. What can I say? And again, I want to put a pin in this. And we're highlighting in big blue letters, like, hey, the idea of your mate being listed in your accolades. Because Taryn, while the dragons have always been dragony, and it's important that they're mated, and it's like a plot point they have to work around every single book, because the dragons can't be apart for that long, Taryn has not been as wife guy in any other book as he is in this one. So again, it's asking you to think about marriage and wedding and partnership and things of that nature, which I think is interesting. And like, there is so much more dragon in this book, which makes me like so happy. Like, at one point on one of the aisles, I don't remember which one, but on one of the aisles, Taryn he's awake. He's keeping watch over the sleeping babies, and Sigel is like snuggled up to him, and she's sleeping, like she has her head like on his back sleeping, and he has his head up and he's awake, and they're just being snuggled up and cute, and I'm like, I love it so much. At least in my personal opinion, from my noggin and my heart, I think this is the first time that we see them be like that. Which I'm a romance girly, so I eat that up every single time. And I will say, Taryn is so much more sarcastic and grumpy and crotchety in this. He's so old man, and it fuels my soul. I love him so much. Like, at one point, Violet calls him a curmudgeon, and that's when the ears show up. And the ears show up, and she's like, hey Taryn, can you come back? And he's like, no, I'm busy curmudgeoning. I'm like, go off, king. Go off. Alright, guys. We're gonna take a stretch break. We're going into the last 2 hours of the book. And this shit goes crazy, okay? I would say it's probably like the last 20%, 30% of the book. I could do the math, I'm not going to. We're entering the last 2 hours out of a 23-hour book. So we're gonna take a moment to stretch, because it's good for your body. Now is also a good time to go pick up that yarn ball that rolled away from you and is now across the room. It's a good time to go change out your paint water, maybe switch out your napkin for a clean one. And of course, it's just good to stretch. Because I don't know about you, but we've been here a while, and I'm starting to feel it. Anyway, all good? Good. Now, off to Eurasia. Why are they in Eurasia? No idea. They're there for, like, training of some sort, but I don't know if Eurasia is now, like, a satellite campus of Basgaias, or if they're just doing, like, their rotation training for when they are, like, in the field? Like, field study? I don't know. They're in Eurasia. I'm bad at taking notes. And here we learn that Brennon has been trying to mend Xaden due to the other mender back at Basgaias that Violet grew up with and now refuses to let him help her, because he is an asshole who did a lot of mending magic on Jack Barlow and is the reason why Jack Barlow is alive. If you don't know who Jack Barlow is like the meanie bully from book 1 who actively tried to kill Violet multiple times and who Violet ended up killing. It was her first kill. And he's an annoying asshole, and he's like a roach. He simply won't die. But the healer back there, like, they were doing a lot of, like, mender magic science experiments to see, like, to keep Jack Barlow alive and to, like, see what does mending magic do on Venom, right? But because of that, Brennon is now trying to see if he can mend Xaden's soul and keep him from turning Venom. And honestly, I find this super interesting. We're putting that in, like, the theory corner. Theory question corner. So we have serious theory corner, and then silly goofy theory corner. And then going in silly goofy theory corner. And I think this is when we learn that Brannon knew Xaden was Venom. We hear about it, but we don't know when he found out, okay? Lock that away. But now in Erasure, Xaden has officially been clean for 73 days, and he wanted to wait until day 76, but now that Violet is there and, like, she's there, she's stationed in Erasure for at least a little bit, he, like, can't help himself, and he wanted to wait the 76 days before he shared a bed with her because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to trust himself and that he would hurt her, because the one time they did kind of get freaky, he did end up leaving, like, thumb marks on the headboard because he had started pulling power, just without thinking about it, and so he was worried. And so he wanted to wait till day 76, that's the longest recorded time, and he got to day 73. All that to say. And this is the closest thing that we get to, like, longing in this book, and I almost liked it. Like, and for full transparency, I am not a fan of Rebecca Yarros's writing style, specifically for sex scenes. Something about it is just not for me, and that's fine. I think for me, they're a little too overly passionate no matter what the circumstances are, which makes them all feel kind of samey and kind of intense, which makes me torn because I'm glad that she writes with this level of passion, because that leaches into her action scenes. Her action scenes also have a lot of passion. Like, they feel very similar in that way. And I love the action scenes. But with the spicy scenes, it feels like too much for me, personally. Again, it feels like they are having sex for the first time in 8 months. They have not seen each other. They haven't been able to have hands on each other, and it's been like 3 days. You know, and that's how they all feel every single time. So, this one, I almost like, because it feels a little more justified, because they had to wait the 73 days. So there's, like, almost tension there, but as sex scenes go as a whole, mid. For me. If you loved it, good for you. I'm glad it's there. That sounded sarcastic. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just trying to find my way back in my script. But anyway, so they have their fun, they have their spice, they have their fun, and then they fall asleep together, and they're sharing a bed for the first time in a while. And Violet, once again, has nightmares, and she's been having nightmares this entire book. I have not mentioned them, but just know that she's been having nightmares. So she has nightmares, and she wakes up, and she realizes that that was not her dream that she was in. It was Xaden's dream. And that she's been doing this for a while. And they realize that, no, she's been having this recurring nightmare, and she asked Xaden about it, and he's like, no, that's my nightmare. I've been having this reoccurring nightmare. Sorry. I'm, like, out of breath because I'm so congested. But Xaden's like, I've been having this reoccurring nightmare since the day with the sage, which is the day that you started to turn venom. And he's like, I haven't told anyone about that. Like, this is the nightmare that I have every single night. And Violet's like, I've been having this nightmare every single night. And they're able to put two and two together that she's a dream walker. Her second signet has finally appeared. And she's been manifesting this entire time. She's been walking into people's dreams for months now. And I think it's actually really quite sweet, because the reason that Violet thinks that this signet specifically manifested is because of Andarna. Because when Andarna was in the big sleep, when she was growing into an adult, Violet couldn't hear her, and she couldn't reach her. Because again, remember, Mind Palace, big room with all 5 of them. And so they're personally connected, and especially Violet and Andarna, like, that's her baby. And she wanted to reach out to her, wanted to feel her, wanted to just know that she was okay, and she would reach down the bond and she couldn't feel anything. And so with Andarna sleeping, she wanted to reach out to her while she was sleeping to try to check up on her, and she was so desperate that want manifested into a signet. And I think that's so sweet, and I love Andarna so much. Ah! And then Wyvern appear, because of course I do. I'm sniffly. And since Erasure doesn't have a ward stone, because they weren't able to bring any other Irids back, because remember, ward stones can only be fired by one dragon. In the sense of, okay, let me rephrase. It takes all 7 types of dragons to alight a ward stone, right? But a dragon can only light one ward stone. So they can't use the same 7 for both, right? So Andarna lit up Basgiath, and they had to make that decision at the end of the last book. We figured out we need the 7th dragon, and Darna's the 7th. Do we light up this ward stone, or do we light up the what? In Erasia. They chose Basgiath, and now I'm dying. But now that means Erasia is left undefended. This is coffee, by the way. It's not tea. It should be tea. But since Erasia is defenseless, that means that more wyvern are coming in, right? They're able to put up, like, some wards, but it's not, like, wardstone wards, you know? And because 6 dragons were able to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Wyvern have appeared. And Eric tells Violet to guard the Temple of Dune in the city, right? Instead of where she was told to go by her squad leader, by Reed, by the general in command, which comes to bite her in the ass because she gets in trouble for this. She gets in trouble for this later, which I appreciate. And I don't know if it's now or later where she realizes that Eric is a precog. But Eric is a precog. All this to say. So he can see the future, but we don't know how quite yet. We don't know, is he getting clear visions? Is he getting just impressions? Like, we don't know. And I cannot wait to hear more about Eric, 'cause I think he's so cool. I genuinely think he's very, very cool. And this is important because Violet is starting to realize that she is, in fact, the best weapon. Again, the theme of the book of Violet stepping into power and realizing that she is a weapon. She is no longer a person. At the end of the day, I know. At the end of the day, like, her thoughts and opinions almost don't matter. Anyway, Violet is learning that she is, like, their ultimate weapon, and her power comes first, not her. So she has to be a team player. Like, she can't go rogue the way that she has been doing. Like, it's part of her responsibility now to be a leader, right? Again, the thing that I talked about earlier of, like, she's either to step into power, she's going to be dragged kicking and screaming. She doesn't have a choice. Like, she is the biggest weapon that they have, and because of her, they can now fly in storms, which dragons have never been able to do before. They're just too big. Like, the likelihood of them getting struck by lightning is way too high, but with Violet there, she's able to redirect the lightning to not hit anyone, which is huge, because now they can use the storm as cover, and, you know, it's a big deal, right? But in this battle, Terran, the badass that he is, because again, Violet is kind of gone against orders, so they're separated. Terran and Violet are a little more separate from the group, and Terran takes the opportunity, and he takes down a wyvern, and he is able to. He grabs it by the neck, and he does a barrel roll, and he snaps its neck, but unfortunately, the wyvern's wing gets jammed in his back leg, and he goes down. Like, they go tumbling, and Violet has to, like, throw herself to his scales because they go down a mountainside. And I bring this up because Ree ends up finding Terran and Violet, and she's like, you guys can't go alone. Like, you just can't do it. You have to let us be there for you. Like, you guys get hurt when we're separated. And luckily, Ree has also been training her signet, so she is able to, summon things. So she's able to summon the wyvern wing out of Terran's leg, because if not, they just would have been screwed. They just would have been completely screwed, because Violet's like, what the fuck am I gonna do? It's a giant wyvern wing. I can hang on that thing and you wouldn't even notice, you know? So she's able to snatch the wyvern wing out of Terran's leg, and which is just more proof that Rhea is the best squad leader around. I love her so much. We do not see enough of her in this book. I hope that she's such a much bigger player in the next book. I think she will be. But I love her. But now, Terran is grounded because he's taken a bad fall. He's taken a bad fall, and he needs to recoup, and he needs to, you know, take a breather and rest his leg for a second. And he is, like, recovering very quickly. But Theophany appears. And she's being a scary, spooky villain. And Violet realizes that she has the fated because again, they're defending the Temple of Doom, right? And she realizes that Theophany on her forehead has the faded tattoo marks of a high priestess, which means that she would be a disgraced high priestess of Dune. And that's probably why she turned venom. What does this mean? No one knows. But we're starting to put the pieces together that Theophany, she's not just a bitch, she's a bitch with a backstory, you see. After this, two main things happen. One, Sigel pissed at Violet. She's like, how dare you let Taryn get hurt? And Violet, she's like, what was I gonna do? He went after the wyvern. What do you want me to do? You stop him. I love it. I love it so much. One, I love how much Sigel and Taryn, like, we see how much they love each other this time. And how much, like, they want to protect each other. Love that so much. And yeah, like, what the fuck was Violet gonna do? Like, at that point, she was just along for the ride. Like, honestly. Ugh. I love Sigel. I want more Sigel, personally. I think that we don't see enough of her, and, like, especially because in this book she's not talking with Xaden, so we only get secondhand conversation between her and Taryn, where Taryn is like, oh no, yeah, Sigel said da-da-da. Oh no, I told her. Oh no, she said yeah. You know, it's stuff like that. Like, we don't actually hear Sigel talk all that much. Which, like, poor girly. Oh, but two, I told you there are 2 points. Two, all the wyvern drop dead and Theophany dips. Because the ward stone goes up. Yay! I'm losing the light. We're not going to talk about it. So, an Irid has appeared. Isn't that so cool? It's so cool. Do I remember his name? No. Could I have written it down? Yes, but I didn't, so we're not gonna harp on it now. But it does start with an L. That I do know. But he's the one that had the same, like, swirls on his horns as Andarna does, and he fired the word stone. And he comes and, like, swoops in at the last moment and, like, fires the word stone. And he tells them, it's not for any of you ungrateful bitches. It's for Andarna. We're from the same den. Which, we love to see it. I love that he came back for her. Because, again, you can't help but love Andarna. It's the law. But because they're from the same den, he wants to show some grace. And he wants to give her a chance to learn their ways. And the ways of the Irid and the magic that they can do. And everything that they can... The magic that they hold. Because they're really special. And... But the only way that she can go is if she unbinds from Violet, which is supposed to be impossible. And they end up asking, like, oh, well, who bonded with you first? Taryn bonded with her first. And then only once they're in the flight pitch did Andarna tell her name. She's like, no, me too. I'm also bonded. And that's only possible because Andarna is an Irid, right? And so that means Andarna is the only one who can break the bond. And it's not funny. It's not funny how hard I cried at this. Like, I'm not even going to try to front with y'all. Like, this, genuinely, it upset me so much. It made me so sad. I love Andarna. That is my girl. And Violet, as much as she doesn't want Andarna to go, because that's, like, her baby. Like, she loves her. She knows that she also wants Andarna to be safe and to be fulfilled and to be loved, and she deserves to know who she is, and she deserves to know her family, and she deserves to inherit this knowledge from these elders. And Violet only wants what's best for Andarna. She loves her so much, and she tells her, go. And, like, I get it, I would too, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Like, oh my god. And go she does, and it feels really abrupt. Like, Andarna, I don't know if she breaks it very abruptly or if she's told, like, we have to go now. And that's why she has to break it very abruptly, but she does. And the bond, like, snaps. And where there once was a window in Violet's mind palace, there's now just a brick wall. And she feels herself collapse to the ground. And Andarna, of course, the bond breaks and she shimmers away. And, like, Violet falls to her knees. And she feels such an empty hollowness. And she can feel how easy it would be to just kind of close her eyes. And how, now that bond is broken, like, the world has no meaning and how easy it would be just to fade into nothing. And the only reason why she survives is because Taryn's like, no, pay attention to me, stop it, and he's like thrusting magic into her, like, stay the fuck awake. And she's like, okay, fine, I'm here, Jesus. And thus Violet becomes the first person ever to survive a bond breaking from a dragon, which is like insane, like, good for her. But she does fall into like a horrible deep depression. And this is the thing that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, which I don't blame you, it's been a while, so I'll remind you what I said, that Xaden takes care of her. She falls into a deep depression for 4 days where she's barely conscious and can't get out of bed. Like, she's not a functioning human whatsoever, and the only reason why because even then, even in those days, the only reason why she doesn't, like, fade away and let herself fall into the forever sleep is because Taryn is like, hey, I'm still here, babe, still here. But it's touch and go for a while, and Mira comes and she helps her out of bed by fighting her, but hey, whatever works. And Violet decides, okay, fine, I'm up, I'm gonna go shower now. And Xaden comes in with her, and he's like, do you need help? Or, I don't think it's do you need help, it was can I help you, can I take care of you? And she says yes, and he helps her into the bath, and he detangles her hair, and he helps her wash her body, and he's just taking care of her, and it's so gentle and so sweet, and I genuinely loved this so much. So much. And Mira, well, earlier in the book, Mira had gone to visit their estranged grandmother, which I think is their dad's mom, I believe. But she goes to visit her, and she learns that Asher, their father, apparently dedicated Violet to Dune. And I don't think Mira knows it's her dad. She just knows that as a child, Violet was dedicated to Dune somehow, some way. But the priestess never finished the dedication because they looked into her future and they saw that it wasn't solid. They saw that the heart that beats for Violet would turn evil, and thus they couldn't do the dedication. That her future was too liquid. I think that the heart that beats for her will turn dark, something like that. And Mira and Brennon are fighting because Mira is convinced that means that Violet is going to turn venom, that the heart that beats in her is going to turn dark. And Brennon's like, no, what did they actually say? In her or for her? Those are two different things. And Mira's like, they both mean the same thing. And they're fighting, and Mira's like, she's going to turn venom, like, we need to preemptively do something about this. And Xaden is like, don't talk about my girl. Get her name out of your mouth. It's not her, it's me. My heart beats for Violet. It always has and it always will. And I've already started the process. So don't blame her. And I'm like, babe, you came in here swinging. Like you could have drawn it out a little bit longer, right? But he said, no, not my girl. How dare you even think that she could turn venom? And thus starts a new fight. But we love a dedicated man. We love that he stood up for her. But it starts a new fight between all four of them all over again. And it ends with Mira storming off and being like, wow, I can't condone this. Venom are evil. You deserve to die. You will kill my sister. You will, do something bad. I cannot side with you. I've been filming for almost 3 hours. It's officially too dark to continue to have the moody lighting. So now we get boring lighting. But Mira storms off, and now we're heading into the final climax. And so Mira gets kidnapped by Theophany in the climax, and Theophany holds her as a bargaining chip, and she tells them, Violet and Xaden, she tells them to bring Xaden's brother to Dreyfus, and that the Thunder Wielder needs to come to make, not to make the exchange. I'm trying to think of, again, why don't I take better notes? She basically tells them, bring me Xaden, bring me his brother, and I have your sister here in Dreyfus, right? And so they all go, and they assume the brother is Jack Barlow because no one else has turned venom that they know of. And then they end up bringing Bodhi, but I don't remember if Bodhi comes against Xaden's will or if Xaden lets him go with Violet, right? Because this entire book, Xaden has been really, really, really protective of Bodhi, because after Xaden, Bodhi is next in line to take over Tyrrendor and to be the Duke of Tyrrendor, right? Because Aiden doesn't have a kid, so there's no heir. He doesn't have a kid, doesn't have a brother. There's no heir whatsoever. So, you can come in. Read the climax of the book, so I hope you're ready. You look so big in my chair. Sorry.
It's a tiny chair.
No, you're just a big man. Anyway, back to Bodhi. So, I don't remember if Bodhi comes against Aiden's will or if Aiden agrees for him to go, because again, the whole heir thing, the whole lineage thing being a whole point in this book. Who knows? Not me. I didn't read it, apparently. Jesus. Especially because Aiden's turning venom. He knows he's gonna turn. So he's, like, really on Bodhi. Like, you have to stay alive. And Bodhi's like, fuck you. So, he's there. And also Bodhi's, like, a brother to Aiden. So they're also like, well, what if it's Bodhi? And also Bodhi's whole signet is that he can nullify other signets. So if anything's gonna happen, Xaden trusts Bodhi to keep Violet safe, right? Why did I write Bodhi and Garrick are the closest things Xaden has to family? They're literally cousins. So we get there. Jack Barlow is not the brother. And I think it's really funny that he didn't do anything in this. So the only way they can transport him is in essentially a closet or like a chest. So they put him in there, and then Garrick, who is a windwalker, so he can blip in and out of existence, so he can walk across the continent basically in blips. You know what I mean? He blips him in with this chest, and they open it. And Jack is like, and he goes, incorrect. And so they just close it and take him away. Like, why was he there? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus. He just shows up to get yelled at and then yoinked. But, because they didn't keep the end of the bargain, which, in Theophany's offense, she's like, I never said it was a bargain. I just told you to show up. It's not my fault you did. And then she slits Mira's throat. Just to piss off Violet. But luckily, Violet jumps into action, crushes Mira's throat, like, as hard as she can, to keep the blood in, basically, until Brandon gets there, and Garrick is able to bring Brandon, and he takes over, but unfortunately there's nothing that he can do, because she's actively dying. He's, like, a second too late, and he's not strong enough to stop her from dying, essentially. And she almost dies, which did make me cry. It did. And she doesn't die. But the only way they're able to save her is because Violet begs Sloane, which, poor Sloane, someone help this girl with her trauma. She begs Sloane to siphon energy from her to Brandon to give Brandon an extra boost to be able to save Mira, right? And Dane is like, hold on, take my power. Violet's like, no, me. And they're like, Violet, again, you need to understand you are a weapon. You are the biggest weapon. You can't do whatever you want. Go over there. And Dane is like, my signet's useless in battle anyway. Take my power. Right. And so Sloane, again, poor Sloane, because the last time she siphoned from someone, they died. But, fuck her trauma. And they make her siphon energy from Dane to Brandon, giving Brandon just enough energy to stabilize her. Right. And there's a moment that is called out, that I'm calling out, because I don't get it. And I don't know if I'm stupid or what. Apparently, Violet clocks that Brandon has a rune on the back of his neck, but not on his arm where Sloane was touching him. Is it established that Sloane, leaves a mark when she touches you? Are we talking, handprints? Because, again, the siphoning of energy back and forth, what does this mean? I didn't know Brandon had a mark on the back of his neck. Violet, what are you talking about? What do you mean that there's a mark on the back of his neck? Could it have been mentioned before and I just forgot? Absolutely. But I just... What? I don't know. It stuck out to me because it was called out, but I have no idea why. But, so, question corner. That's question corner over there. I won't have an answer for it, but I hope one of you do. But with that, the final battle is finally kicked off. Garrick is blipping back and forth. He's able to blip Mira back to Erasia so she can get in the hands of healers. But they have to save her dragon. So Terran, being the biggest, baddest dragon around, he's the only one that can really carry Tiny. Which means that he has to leave Violet alone with Theophany. And he does. Because they need to distract Theophany. Because again, war's happening right over there. And Theophany is like, oh, your biggest weakness is sacrificing yourself to help other people. And this entire book, it's like, yeah, no, she just wants to die. She wants to throw herself in front of the arrow to help everyone all the time. And so she desperately has to, like, Violet, being her, has to fight with herself to, like, stay with Theophany, stay alive, keep her distracted, let everyone else have a chance to win. But Taryn carries Tiny back to Eurasia because she can't fly on her own because she was trapped in her metal net. And I desperately want to hear a POV from Mira. I need to know Mira and Tiny's relationship. I just do. Like, the fact, I forgot that Tiny was green, first off, and that Violet's corset armor that she wears is made from tiny scales. She has a green vest. I forgot. It's under a black mesh, so, like, it's black, but I forgot. It makes me soft. It does. Anyway, Violet and Bodhi are left alone to deal with Theophany. And I want to call this out because, again, someone gets yeeted. They realize that Bodhi has no effect on Theophany's signet because it doesn't work the way that their traditional signets work. And Violet's like, Bodhi, got to get the fuck out of here. Like, you're next in line. You have to leave. And he's like, no, how dare you? Like, I'm not leaving. Mid-sentence, he gets yoinked. His dragon picks him up and flies away. And, oh my god, I fucking laughed out loud. It's not meant to be funny, but I laughed out loud. Mid-sentence. Gone. Jesus Christ. But yeah, the image of Bodhi being clutched in his dragon's claw, just one, because, again, they're massive, as he is kicking and screaming and demanding to fight, and they're just flying away. Oh, it makes me giggle. Gives me such a good giggle. But anyway, so now it's just Violet and Theophany, and Taryn is like, hey, stay on the ground, which, considering Theophany can drain the ground of magic and kill her, not the greatest advice, Taryn, but I smell what you're stepping in. Like, stay in the field. I will come back. Wait for me. Yeah, so it's just Violet and Theophany, and Violet luckily is smart and is trying to outsmart her, and because Theophany does immediately start draining the ground and tries to kill her, and Violet is able to, like, jump on a dead wyvern, and, like, because Theophany is not trying to kill Violet. Theophany wants Violet to turn, because we learn that Theophany, she's not a thunder wielder. She's a storm wielder. She's the foil to Violet's mother. Insane in the membrane. Which, in my opinion, makes her more dangerous because, again, the dragons can't fly through storms, and now they can, but only the ones flying with Violet can, not all of them. So, that's a huge thing. And, oh my god, I can't imagine how traumatizing that is. One, Violet's already traumatized from the having to run away from magic being drained out of the earth. Like, that's the whole reason why she picked up running in book 2, is, like, she never wants to be caught unawares. So the fact that she literally had to outrun the magic being sucked out of the floor is like, oh my god, okay, my worst fear coming true. Interesting. But not only that, but then the person who you're fighting, who you thought was meant to fight you, is like, no, I was meant to fight your mom. Oh, she's dead. Personally, I would have my therapist on speed dial. Like, how do you cope with that? Like, I had to see my mom die, and now I have to fight the person that was meant to kill her, but I was the one who was, like, there, and I'm the reason why she died, and it's like, anyway, it just sucks. And, Theophany is trying to make Violet turn. Like, she is trying to push her into a corner until Violet snaps and starts to pull magic from the earth. And Violet is just trying to stay alive. But the reason why Theophany wants Violet is because at the end of Iron Flame, at the end of Iron Flame, the only good part of the book, not the only good part, but, like, the best part of the book, is the end. And, Violet has a moment where she can feel the ozone layer change, and she realizes it's her mom calling in a thunderstorm to equip her favorite weapon, her daughter. And so that's why, pause for creaking, tea. Is it too hot?
It's gonna be too hot.
Oh, my throat really hurts. But that's why Theophany wants Violet. Like, she wants her own weapon. Again, the entire book, Violet is but a weapon. She is but a thing. And I am coming to realize that, like, while talking about this isn't in my script, this whole, that she's being reduced down to a thing. And it makes the later discussion we're going to have a lot more interesting. Just saying. But yeah, Violet is on the verge of losing, and then she realizes that... Anyway, Violet's getting the shit beat out of her, she's getting her shit rocked, and she feels a little stab in her side. Because before she went into battle, a parcel was shoved into her hand, being like, hey, from Eric, take this. And she's like, okay, and takes it with her. Why didn't you open it there? I don't know, I personally would have, but I'm a nosy bitch. Anyway, but she looks at the package, and the note scribbled on the side is for when you lose yours. And she goes, okay, and she opens it, and it's a dagger, because she's lost all her daggers at this point, because again, she's getting her shit rocked. And so she's lost all of her daggers, and it's a dagger made out of the marble from the Temple of Dune, and Violet's able to put two and two together. I think this is the moment where she realized that he's a precog, but whatever. But she's able to put two and two together, that with Theophany being a disgraced high priestess of Dune, and not being able to step foot in the temple, and this dagger being made of the temple, one plus one equals two sometimes, you know? And so Violet goes after Theophany. Unclear if she lands the killing blow, because we don't see a body, and in that moment, Theophany almost gets Violet. So, like, Violet, like, very, very close to death. And in that moment, a huge wave of darkness washes over everything. An Onyx Storm, if you will. And yeah, I don't think we see a body. I can't just be being stupid. I could just be being stupid. But no body, no crime. And I don't know if we see the body, but I also just think I might not understand what happens in this moment in general, because a lot happens. And it feels very disjointed and a huge mess, and it makes sense because, again, we're seeing it from Violet's point of view, and a lot happens, and she's being kind of tossed left, right, and center, and all that, so, like, it makes sense. It's just a lot, and I feel like I don't understand what's going on, and that's totally fine. A book doesn't need to spoon-feed me for me to still be interested. Do you know what I mean? Huge mess. Violet almost dies, and Darna shimmers in out of nowhere, which, again, bitch, it's been 4 days. You just left, and now you're back, but she doesn't say anything. She doesn't talk to Violet, I don't think. If she does, it's a very small thing. I think she just makes eye contact with Violet, and she's there, and she protects her. And I think that's when the Onyx Storm comes in. It's a little out of order. Shut up. Personally, I was like, Andarna, you just left. I just finished crying for you. Why are you back already? Girl. Whatever. But she jumps in the fight. She jumps in front of Violet. She takes it. I don't think she takes a hit for Violet. But she jumps in front of Violet to protect her. And I was like, and like I said, the Onyx Storm rolls in. And Violet has this moment of dread because she knows what that means if there's a wave of shadows coming in, as dark as it is. It has to be Xaden, and for him to be this powerful, it can really only mean one thing. And from here, we're jumping around a lot. We switch a lot of POVs in a very short amount of time. Teeny bit jarring. I get what she's going for. Not my personal favorite. I feel like there's too many jumps, but we're getting into it. First, if we jump to Rhee's point of view, she sees the giant shadow. And I, honestly, while I like seeing Rhee, and I'm so happy that she's here and I want to see more of her, I'm super confused as to why we get her POV. We just see her be like a good squad leader, you know what I mean? She's checking with her squad, and she's like, we see her kind of being pulled in all directions and trying to be a good leader, and that's kind of it. Then we jump to Imogen's point of view. We see her second signet, and we know that Dane sees her second signet because they have a moment. Not like that, but they have a moment where she protects him and they use his shield. She turns it to stone. Transfiguration, okay. And she's like, and Dane looks at her and goes, we're gonna talk about that later. Peace, and runs off. Because why we're attacking, everything's happening, and Imogen is just trying to get to Quinn. She knows Quinn is stuck in the armory, I think, that's being evacuated. I think that's what's happening. The point is, she's trying to get to Quinn. I forgot Quinn was in this book, personally. But Quinn dies. How dare you? And I'm gonna be so fucking upfront with you. I genuinely forgot Quinn was in this book. I think we see her once. No, I don't think we see her. I think she gets mentioned once that she's, like, sharing a room with her girlfriend. Like, that's it. And, like, I know that Imogen and Quinn are best friends. Like, if someone tells me that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is correct. But when I think of Imogen, I don't think of Quinn. I think of a generic person next to her, and I just forgot Quinn existed. I'm sorry. But did I cry when she died? Yes. I'm a sap. What do you want from me? And I think it's because of the flashback, personally. Like, what did I say? We get a flashback to Quinn and Imogen meeting for the first time, and they're meeting, like, at the parapet. Basically what Ree and Violet had, where they're meeting, like, on the way up. And, Quinn looks at Imogen and says, oh, I think, like, we're gonna be good friends. And Imogen's like, we're literally about to cross the parapet. We could literally die. What are you talking about? It would be a short friendship. And Quinn looks at her and says, well, better make it a good one. And that's, like, the start of their relationship. And then we cut back to Quinn dying in Imogen's arms. We cut back to Quinn dying in Imogen's arms, being like, I hope we made it a good one. And I started bawling. And I'm sitting there taking notes, and I'm literally going, why the fuck am I crying? Like, I have no emotional attachment to Quinn whatsoever. I forgot she had a girlfriend. I thought Imogen had the girlfriend. I'm gonna be so for real with you, and, like, you can read me in the comments all you want, you can laugh at me, you can make fun of me, but is this not a safe space?
Not me forgetting to mention the bury your gays trope. Oh my god. Quinn in this book, I think, is the only one that is, like, mentioned as being canonically still gay. At least in any way that matters. Ree talks about her girlfriend in, like, a passing sentence being like, yeah, no, we're just so busy, and then that's it. And where did the non-binary character go? Rebecca. Don't make me put the milk carton out. Like, where are they? Also forgot their name. Sorry.
Anyway, we jump back to Violet, and she's in the Onyx Storm, dealing the final blow, and she realizes Xaden's full of venom. Then we jump to Xaden's point of view, and he thinks about his new brother, and then he's like, oh, I can't think about that right now. And he's like, oh, I can finally sense my new brother, right? And he's pissed off, and he's gone, like, full venom, and he's pissed off he can't kill his sage, he's pissed off he can't kill whatever the fuck is above a sage, I forget. And he's thinking about the power that he can hold now that he's fully transformed, and how good that feels, and what does it feel like to be so powerful. But on the inside, he can feel the tiny, tiny little shred of a soul that is left, still tying him to Violet. And, like, even in the very back of his mind, he knows that he can't stop loving her, and he's, like, clutching on to that thread of his soul for dear life. And he like, makes the conscious decision of, like, I'm not letting go. I can't let go, right? Hard cut to 12 hours later. Violet is waking up, no idea what happened. She suddenly has a ring on her finger, message in her pocket. I think she's flat on her back. She has no idea how she got there. In my mind, I'm sure that she's, like, in her room. In my mind, on the floor in the courtyard. No idea what's going on. And she gets a message in her pocket basically telling her Arisha is hers. Like, take care of our home. Basically what the message says. Did I write it down? No. Should I have? Yes. And so she's putting the pieces together, and then she looks at Imogen, and she's like, what did you do? Like, what did you do to me? And Imogen looks at her and goes, I only did what you asked me to do. Dun dun dun. And ta-da, we finally have a good Christian marriage. And Violet is the new Duchess of Tyrrendor, and she has no idea why. The end. If there's one thing Rebecca Yarros loves, is to leave us on a cliffhanger. I will tell you that. But yeah, that's the end. I will say, a ring, she got a bit... Where's my ring? Hold on. I forgot my ring. I haven't been wearing my ring this entire time. Anyway, I love her ring. She has a big old emerald on her ring, and she recognizes it as one of the emeralds from the hilt of the Sword of Tyrrendor. Like, the ceremonial sword that's gifted to Xaden, that meant a lot to him because it was his father's. Big thing. She clocked it halfway through the book that there was an emerald missing, and she asked him, like, oh, like, did it fall out? Are you getting it replaced? Like, what happened? And he was like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I'm getting it taken care of. And it's because he got it removed to make her ring. Like, I do love that. I do. I'm such a sap. I am such a sap. That tickled me pink. Anyway, so why did I tell you all of that? Why did I go through the hassle of telling you a very, very bad recap of what happened in Onyx Storm? well, I really wanted to highlight all the things that I liked about this book. One, because I just enjoyed reading the book and I like talking about it. But two, like, there are a lot of things that stuck out to me that it was hard to bring up everything I liked without providing context of, like, what happened right before and what happened right after. Because if I had done that, just been like, I like this, I like this, I like that, it would have been really hard to follow and probably would have made no sense. So I hope that I provided a good enough recap where you're able to follow along in the story, and I was able to highlight the things that I like without you getting too confused, hopefully. I hope that we are all currently on the same page. Personally, I'm on page 21, so I hope you are too. And yeah, no, I really enjoyed reading this book. It felt like a sequel to Fourth Wing in a way that Iron Flame hadn't. But unfortunately, the ending left me feeling a bit worried about where the series is going forward. So let's take a moment to go hop into the serious theory corner just for a second, and we're gonna talk about all of my, like, serious theories. Yeah. So now that we are in the theory corner, welcome. So now that we are in the serious theory corner with an airplane calendar that's just gonna be there, I can't move it. There are a few rules. This is a safe space, and I do have to bring my mic up because I can't get my table close to me. So if it sounds weird, I'm sorry. But yeah, this is a safe space. There's no judgment, and anything said in Theory Corner stays in Theory Corner. Okay? So I'm being serious. Like, we're gonna get serious for a second, unfortunately, for such a silly book. So there's such a heavy emphasis on marriage and lineage and heirs and children, and it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. Not nowhere in this story necessarily, like, there is a lot of gentle groundwork leading you up to them getting married at the end, but it doesn't feel like a book 3 theme. It feels much more like a book 4 theme, you know what I mean? So the fact that she ends up married at the very end with no memory feels a little rushed, in my opinion. And honestly, the ending left me speechless. And do you know what I mean when I say, like, no, this feels like a 4th book theme out of 5, not 3 out of 5. I don't know. It feels heavy-handed. Like, it feels like this should have been the groundwork, and in book 4, she gets married. But we're ending book 3 with her married, and I think that's why it feels so rushed. Because the groundwork is there. It makes sense. Like, the second it happens, you go, oh, I see where you were leading me, you know? So I don't know why it feels so rushed, but yeah, it just does. And I think it's because in book 1 and 2, there really wasn't any emphasis on lineage or marriage or heirs or anything like that. So it was never brought to our attention until this book, and in this book, it was solidified in a way, and that's why it feels so rushed. And honestly, the ending of this book, it left me speechless, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And I hate to say it, but the first thing I googled once I finished this book was, is Rebecca Yarros conservative? And again, we listen and we don't judge, okay? I googled it because we're in this fantasy war. We're in this fantasy world where this fantasy war is happening with dragons and wyverns and griffins and magic and signets, and then suddenly it's like, no, you two in the serious devoted relationship with the magical mated bonding dragons and the mind meld, it doesn't matter, you can't sleep in the same bed. No, you're not married, it's inappropriate. Your relationship, it doesn't count, you're not there yet, and that feels kind of weird all of a sudden. And like, it's brought up multiple times that, like, Xaden doesn't have an heir, he's the only one left. And I guess, like, you can say that marriage was brought up in book 2 because Katrina was supposed to marry Xaden, like, they were betrothed. But it was brought up and then dropped immediately, so I'm not counting that. But yeah, the fact that, like, he needs an heir is a big deal. Like, if he doesn't have a baby, if he dies, like, we're losing Eurasia, and it's going to be given to someone else, you know, we don't know who that's going to be. And then the whole other thing with Theophany being a foil to Violet's mother specifically, and the whole thing with meeting and confronting Xaden's mother and her failings and her trauma of being a mother, and like what it means to be a parent, and like this theme of like generational trauma with Violet inheriting all these books from her dad that she has to figure out what to deal with. Like, he left her all this work with only clues of how to handle it, but without actually telling her how to handle it. And this theme of generational trauma has been very trendy lately. Ever since Encanto, like, the theme of generational trauma has been around, you know. But it's a lot, and it's a lot to happen all at once. And I'm not saying that these things are bad. No. I'm not saying they're bad. Encanto's one of my favorite movies, first off. But it's not bad to have these things in this book. I actually really like that these things are in this book. I really like this book. I want that to be clear. I really like this book. It just made me curious, you know. And it made me curious because, like I said earlier, death to the author, but their work is their stone. We can only ever write what we know, and our life is going to influence our work no matter what. Like, there's no way to avoid it. And that's why I'm such a proponent of, if you want to write a book, because no one can write a book like you. Only you have your life experience, right? It goes both ways, the good and the bad. But so I Googled it, and it turns out Rebecca Yarros used to be Mormon. Totally fine. She is no longer practicing. Again, totally fine. And like I've mentioned in my last Fourth Wing video, and like I said on her, like, bio, she is a military brat from a military family. If you're not from the States, a military brat is someone whose family, who grew up with one or both parents in the military. Why military brat is the term, I'm not entirely sure, but that's what that means. And so that means that they grew up on base. So she's from a military family, and she is married to either someone actively in the military or a veteran. I think a veteran. And as another woman, also devoted to a veteran, the idea of a young marriage for utility makes sense. It doesn't surprise me, it doesn't shock me that idea would be floating around, you know what I mean? And I'm not young, first off. I'm not young. My partner's no longer in the military, but I grew up having friends who got married young to people in the military. It is a well-known thing. That's all I'm saying. And I also want to make a point that I'm not saying being conservative or growing up Mormon and no longer practicing, or being a practicing Mormon, that none of those things are a bad thing. I don't want to sound like I'm passing judgment, because on the surface level, it's not. People are nuanced, and we should only judge people based on who they are as a person. And then we judge the art based on what's on the page, okay? And this is not a reflection or judgment of Rebecca Yarros' character. I do not know her. These are all just conjunctures throughout the end, that I am making on my own based on what is on the page and broad strokes of Yarros' background, right? And I know as an author myself, if I bring up my idea of the author tombstone, and what does that mean? I know that my current and all of my future work is going to be looked at under a microscope. And it's opening the doors for prying about how my upbringing and how my beliefs affect my work, and what does that say about me. And while I'm worried about that, I'm also okay with that. I can only be who I am, and I can only know what I've learned, you know? So, again, we're not passing judgment here at this time. I want to make that very clear. We're just theorizing as a third party. And all that to be said is because the thing that I am worried about, and what the ending made me worried about, is that Violet is pregnant. And that's an ice cold take. It's a very popular theory that's going around right now because of the lineage, because of the emphasis, and all the emphasis is in the book. And if we take the context of Rebecca Yarros' background, I wouldn't be shocked if Violet was pregnant. But I wouldn't like it. And again, I think that's an ice cold take. I've seen so many pregnancy theories and alternate pregnancy theories circling around, and I think what I'm really worried about is that she's gonna start the next book pregnant. And I think I'd hate it, because the other running theme in this book is that Violet has to step up into a position of leadership and has to step into her power. If not, she's going to be dragged there kicking and screaming, because she's a weapon. She's one of the strongest signet wielders ever right now. And if she's suddenly, shockingly surprised pregnant, yes, there could be an interesting conversation to be had about why would a woman have to give up power to also have a child, and like, why can't she have both? And I think that theme in that story could work well into this, but not like this. Personally, for me, in my opinion, if you're going to have that story happen, you have to treat it with care and make sure it's done properly, and it needs time. We can't drop the surprise pregnancy trope and then have that conversation. And personally, in my opinion, from my brain only, if that is the trajectory of the story, I wish that we would have more angst and more adult conversations around it. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're in a dangerous war-like mindset, seizing the moment is not a foreign concept. The idea of, we don't know if we're going to live to see tomorrow, and I can't go another day without telling you how much I love you, and I desperately need to call you my husband, my wife, my spouse, I want to start a family with you in case we never get the chance. That concept is romantic in its own way. But we haven't had that yet. We haven't had those conversations. They haven't talked about kids. The fact that Violet was shocked that Xaden pretended to be like, my wife. And she was like, you know? And they haven't talked about the concept of kids yet. Like, that's not on their minds. And I would hate to, and if we're gonna have that in this story, I would hate for it to feel like it's not their choice, but rather it's just another problem thrown at them that they have to deal with. Versus if they made the choice to start a family in times like these, because honestly, having a kid in college it's a weird fucking choice. Okay, just saying. And again, I'm not against it. I'm not gonna say, we should never have pregnancy in fantasy books. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm just worried how it's going to be handled if that is the case, you know? And I think I'm secretly worried that this is going to be a pro-choice versus pro-life conversation. And again, I don't think I would be shocked if that was the case, simply because Roe v. Wade was overturned recently. So having that conversation be so prevalent and being at the forefront of someone's mind and seeing it leach into art around this time, it makes sense, you know? Again, we can only write what we know. And for instance, in my book, Found Adrift, there's a running theme of grief and loss and starting over, because I started writing it in 2022, where the world was still grieving severely from COVID, and I had nowhere to put that grief, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, because that's how art works. And like, one of my favorite things about Harry Potter, stick with me, one of my favorite things about the Harry Potter series is that Lily and James were 21, and how truly tragic that is. They were so young, but they grew up in this age of war, and they seized the moment, and they had a kid young, and that the last time Harry sees their ghost, he is shocked that he is the same height as his dad. And he is shocked that they look so young when the first time he saw them, and how they're fresh in his mind is when he was 11, and they seemed so grown. And that only gets sadder the older you get. I'll be completely honest with you, because, oh my god, they're so young. And I hate to mention she who shall not be named twice in the same video, but it is what it is. And so all this to say, I think this idea could work. I'm not against it. But it seems like, it's coming out of nowhere. And something about Violet waking up married scared me. And while I know it's voluntary, that doesn't make it any less jarring, you know? And I could be completely wrong and completely way off base with this, and I could be looking way too deep into this. And if I am, that's what the Serious Theory Corner is for. okay? We listen and we don't judge. This is where we share our serious theories. And I think I just want to make it clear that if Violet is pregnant in this series, I want them to really talk about and weigh the consequences of that. I don't want it to be a surprise. I don't want it to be a problem that has to be solved. I want them to ask questions, because if she gets pregnant, could it cure Xaden, like the Irids said? Because the Irids at one point say, like, the only way that he could be healed is, like, in his lineage, maybe they would be fine, you know? And that would make sense if his love for Violet is what is keeping his soul intact by a thread. Then his love for his child could be enough to bring all the pieces back together. You know what I mean? And I don't have a kid personally, but I know so many people say that, like, the first time that they hold their kid, it's the magical moment. They realize what love is, you know? It makes them feel whole for the first time. Although a lot of people also say that they don't have that feeling, and that's perfectly fine too. It's almost like everyone is different, you know? And it's fine if you didn't have that feeling when you held your kid for the first time. There's nothing wrong. You're good. Or the question, would it be worth it to secure an heir for Tyrandor in case they don't make it? Could they want a kid just because Xaden might die, so Violet would be left alone without any piece of him, and this is a way to leave a piece of him behind? And what would that mean for Navarre if their deadliest weapon suddenly became a lot more fragile? The deadliest weapon being Violet. Or would it be horribly selfish for her to choose to have a baby, even if that means she has to sit out and watch all of her loved ones go to war anyway? Because I can't see our Violet doing that. Not my Violet. Because we literally talk about how her fatal flaw is she will always run to help people, because that's who she is. That's why she wanted to be a writer. Because they don't run away from danger, and they help people who can't help themselves, you know? The entire climax, she is suffering because she can't help anyone. The only way that she can help is by being a distraction, and that feels like she's doing nothing, and that sucks. She hates it. Those are big questions that require a lot of thinking and a lot of talking and a lot of active communication from all of our characters. And can you have those questions that in a way that is still satisfying for the reader? I don't know. I'm not Rebecca Yarros. This isn't my book. But yeah, those are all my serious big girl thoughts. I'm so curious. What do you guys think? Do you think she's pregnant? Do you have an alternate pregnancy theory? Because I've been seeing that there are alternate pregnancy theories running around, that, like, this whole legacy thing and lineage and heir thing could be, like, a red herring, because deadass it could. I would believe that. I haven't seen any that are, like, fully fledged out, because the book's only been out a week, but I know people are circulating thoughts, pieces here and there. So I'm just super curious. So yeah. Now that we have all those big girl thoughts out, now we're gonna go over to, like, the fun theory corner, okay? The lighthearted theory corner, okay? Going over there. I forgot, before we go over to fun theory corner, do you remember how I talked about how Violet has to accept that she's a weapon and a thing, and she's not a person? And now she kind of has to accept that. And if we're running down the thought process that she might be pregnant, a lot of women suffer when they're pregnant because now they're only seen as mothers and they're not seen as people, and they have their autonomy kind of taken away from them, because now they are second-rate citizens, and the most important thing about them is being a baby-making machine. That's just an interesting connection. It's one I made while actively filming. It's not one I wrote, so it's a lot less polished. Not that any of this is polished, but that's just me kind of talking off the cuff. But do you see what I see? Do you see why I'm worried? Because that's a very heavy topic for our fun little pew pew dragon books. So, and I know Rebecca Yarros has talked about how she writes books that deal with war and the fallout of war, and not because of glorifying the military complex, but rather because she has so much firsthand experience with how it affects people. She is fascinated and loves to talk about, like, the fallout and how it changes people and how it hurts people and, like, the damage that it can do and things of that nature. So Just really, again, we're in the big girl thought corner, okay? Big girl thoughts, but no more big girl thoughts. Done. Again. That one's just more off the cuff. Okay, over to the fun corner, I promise. We're going. I paused to eat dinner. I was very hungry. I have been recording for 3.5 hours. I had soup. Thanks for asking. It was delicious. My father-in-law made it. Okay, but hello. We are now in the fun theory corner. This is a corner, I swear to God. And a lady decided now is a good time to play.
Caught it. You did it.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so welcome to the fun theory corner. And like I said, this is a corner, I promise. It doesn't look like it looks like a flat wall, but corner. But yeah, so this is where we have the non-serious big girl thought theories. These are little thoughts. This is where we talk about the fun theories, where we just kind of are spitballing, seeing what sticks. And I don't super have a script for this, so I'm actually just going to go down the list that I have in my script. I wrote 25 pages, okay? I'm allowed to, like, free ball the ending. But, no, so I'm just going to go through some of my highlighted points, and we're going to... we're going to talk theories while my cat plays with her spring. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Okay, so the first thing I highlighted in my script was the fact that Xaden's onyx eyes that reflect with gold, once he started channeling, turned amber. And again, that's a very subtle shade difference. My partner is playing with my cat. We're just gonna, we're going through it, all right? But no, that's a very, like, subtle shade difference. And she being Violet, points to it all the time. Like, oh, the amber flecks are no longer gold. And when I say subtle, I mean, like, 2 shades subtle. So the fact that she's talking about it so much, and the fact that in previous books, Brennon has been said to have amber-colored eyes, like golden eyes, you know. And this isn't a theory that I thought up myself. I was looking up theories, like the pregnancy theories like we're talking about. I was looking up those, and this one just happened to come out. Someone pointed it out, and I was like, oh, no, you're right. If I can find the blog post, I should still have it up. If I can find it, I will put the name here, and I'll link it in the description. But yeah, and I just thought that was really interesting, because we know one other person has turned venom, and we don't know who it is. It's Xaden's brother, which is why I think Brannon could be a good choice, especially now that Xaden and Violet are married. That is his brother-in-law, so his brother. That could be really interesting. Plus the fact that, like, when Sloane channeled into him, Violet clocked something being weird, something about a rune, something about a mark, something along those lines being weird. Like the fact that she pointed out, and I pointed it out in my script, I was like, I don't know what this means. If anyone else with bigger thoughts knows what that means, I would love to know. But yeah, so that's a question that I had for the question corner. And the fact that, now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that he lived, he shouldn't be alive. Like, he's supposed to be dead. He's supposed to have burnt out trying to save his friend. He wasn't able to save his friend, but he burnt out anyway. Like, do we think that he could have, that's the first time he channeled from the earth? You know? I'm just saying, like, it's possible. I think that'd be interesting. For other contenders, I've heard Garrick be thrown around, because when we go into, is it Ree or Imogen? One of their point of view, Garrick is, like, violently throwing up in the corner, and the fact that it was pointed out. No, other contenders, Garrick, I think, is a big contender, because, again, we just saw him violently throwing up, and we don't know why. I think it could have been exhaustion, unless I'm getting Garrick confused with someone else, which is very possible. Riddick could have been throwing up, and I could be mistaken. But whoever was throwing up, that's, like, a contender. Some people are saying Dane could be a contender because of, again, the siphoning, of Sloane siphoning energy, and then them both being fine. And, like, Brannon makes a comment that, like, she gave me a little more, or, yeah, I think it's Brannon who makes a comment, like, oh, no, she gave me a little more, like, I'm good. And then Dane walks away just fine. Like, did he just have extra energy to give? You know? So like that's an option. I don't think Riddick. I don't think Imogen. And we said brother. It could be sibling. I don't think it would be a feminine presenting person. So yeah, I think. I don't think it could be anyone else. Bodhi got snatched. Yeah, I don't know. I'm putting my money on Brannon, personally. But who do you think it is? Who are you putting your money on to be the new brother, you know? Okay, and then the next thing I highlighted was the fact that Violet was semi-dedicated to Dune. That's a super interesting question. But no, so the fact that, and this was like really heavily handed, like you have to pay attention to this, there's another child with the half and half hair. So the fact that Violet now understands why her hair is silver, because she was almost dedicated to Dune but didn't, like they didn't complete the dedication. I personally, me, myself, and I, from my little brain, I think that she is going to finish that devotion at one point and go all silver. I don't know how the religion works in this book, so I don't know if she's gonna like have to be a priestess or become part of the church or what. That would be interesting. Personally, her come to God moment would be interesting. But yeah, I do think she's gonna finish the dedication, and that's gonna be able to grant her access to like stronger power or more finesse over her power or something. I think that could be really interesting. I think the biggest question I have right now is, why did her dad devote her to begin with? Why did her dad devote her or start the devotion process to begin with? Because it's not like it's the god of love or wisdom. Like the god of wisdom, I feel like would make more sense off the cuff, because Asher's whole thing was like gathering wisdom. But no, the goddess of war, when she was meant to be a scribe, like her dad died thinking she was going to be a scribe. So that's an interesting question. I don't have an answer for that one as to why. I know that they toyed with the idea of devoting a child to a goddess to try to fix them, since Violet came out broken, quote unquote. And if you're only listening and you're not looking, I am putting air quotes around that, because I don't take that as fact that she's broken. I don't subscribe to that. Was it an act of desperation to try to make her healthy again when she was born unhealthy? I could see that, but the groundwork I don't think has been laid for that, in my opinion, press currently. It's just because like it's so specifically the goddess of war, it's not wisdom, it's not luck, it's not love, it's not good health, it's war. And you would think that if anything, it would be Emerella? Oh my god, I cannot remember. The one that starts with an A. The one they talk about all the time. Why not devotion to them? Why Dune? It almost feels like it should have been devotion to the A god, just because that's what we hear about most. But anyway, so that's a question for the question corner. I don't have an answer for it, unfortunately. I'm just proposing because I'm curious. What do you think? And jumping off from that question, I think my other question is, why was her dad going to all the islands to begin with and gathering all this knowledge? Like, there's this weird future telling aspect. And you know what it makes me think of? This is just an off the cuff theory, and I don't super know how to super formulate it, but the idea that they had a precog themselves, and that's the one that turned Venom, not Zayden, Violet's family, if they had a precog of their own and they ended up turning Venom, and that's why, they're like setting up their daughter, like he saw something about their daughter and that's why they're like, we have to protect her. Like, that could be really interesting, and that's why he was going around like searching for all the other gods and stuff like that. That could be an interesting connection. The fact that Eric is a precog is wild, because again, if we're going off the thesis that every signet has an equal and opposite signet on both sides, who the hell is their precog? And that's why I'm like, did they have one and that's what started her dad going off on this tangent? And I know a really popular one, if we're talking about the gods and the Isles, they didn't go to the Isle of Love. And I know that it's really popular theory that like the because the answer is always love, right? Xaden is holding on to the love he has for Violet, and that's what's keeping him semi-sane as he is turning full venom, or as he has turned full venom. And so the cure for venom is probably going to be on the Isle of Love with the God of Love, right? I get that. I see that. I hear you. That's a really popular theory. And I think I subscribe to that theory. I think I'd click subscribe. Click subscribe. Do it. But that's a popular theory, and I could see that. And I do want to ask, if you had to line up each god with a dragon, who do you think would be what? Black has to be Malik, obviously. And I think love would be the Irid, but I think that's just the gay in me talking. Oh, more evidence to feeding into the Brennon being Xaden's new brother theory. How and why did Brennon find out that Xaden was Brennon? You know, like, we'd never find that out. Or we might have, and I'm just stupid. But I don't think we ever find that out. And why are you trying to mend him, Brennon? Why are you just so ready to be like, yeah, okay, nope, makes sense. Let me try, you know? It feels like there's something more there. And there's always going to be something more with Brennon, because we don't know. We don't know how he lived. Truly, we don't know how he lived. So, because again, it's like, oh, people said he burned out. People saw him burn out. So, could he be the Venom? I think that he could be, and I think it would make a lot of sense that he was, and that he either like micro channeling, like microdosing to appear normal, or he just held off. He would have to held off for years at this point, and that's a feat, but possible. So interesting. I think the idea of microdosing is also very funny. Not funny, haha, but funny, weird. And I think my last question is, do you think Violet is pregnant? Or do you think she's going to be pregnant in the next book? Or do you think it's a huge red herring? I need to know all of your thoughts, dude. And if there are any theories that you like and I didn't mention, just put them down below. This question corner is a call to conversation, because I don't have all the answers. I'm just a girl by myself in the corner. So, yeah. And we're gonna scooch out of the corner just slightly, just to finish this video, and like, to really wrap up the thoughts of the thesis, Onyx Storm and how to save a failing story. So I guess the question is, was the story failing to begin with, and did Onyx Storm save it? Personally, I think Iron Storm was a turn in the wrong direction. I think it latched on to the things that the fandom liked and held on a little too tight, and veered in the direction a little too hard, like a little bit of an overcorrection. And I feel like Onyx Storm has now corrected the overcorrection and is now steering us back into where the story wanted to go originally, when it's not influenced by insane level of virality. And I know that Rebecca Yarros has talked about how she's had the 5 books planned for a very long time, so I'm not saying that like she was totally influenced and the fans ruined Iron Flame. I'm not saying that at all. Although I might for a soundbite. I think the fans ruined Iron Flame. What are you gonna do about it? But I'm getting loopy. I've been recording for 4 hours straight, and my body hurts. I've just like laid down on the floor a few times. But yes, I don't think she was steered incredibly off course with the virality. I do believe that like she had a plan and she had these beats. I just think that personally, I think that there are beats in Iron Flame that feel so thought out and so fleshed out, and that feel like they've cooked completely. They're done. They're ready to serve. And it's the connecting tissue of how we get from those scenes, scene to scene, is where it gets messy, and where it's been quickly scribbled in instead of tediously marked in, you know? And I'm glad now that she's taking more time with each book. I'm very happy about that. I think if we had kept on the faster pace, I think that it could have ran this story into the ground. And what I think makes this book so different from the last one is, 1, giving it more time. 2, hearing what the fans do and don't like, not just what they do like, but 3, it just feels fun again. Like, it feels like she had fun writing it. Fourth Wing has always been, I've been saying it feels like fan fiction, but it does. It's that same level of soap opera, over the top, ooey gooey, syrupy, dramatic funness. You know, we have we have the love interest who can talk to each other in their minds. We have the main character who has the biggest dragon around. We have that both of our love interests are the 2 most powerful wielders on the planet right now, because of course they are. You know what I mean? Like, you can read Fourth Wing and just go, oh, of course that's what it is. Or you can read it and go, yeah, no, that is what it is, and just lean into it. And I feel like we're at that point again where we can lean into it and it's fun. It doesn't feel tiring. And I think if you're an aspiring author, the best way to capture that is to write things that make you laugh, write things that make you cry, write things that make you giggle and kick your feet while writing them. And that's what this book feels like. And that makes me happy. It shows to me as a consumer, as a reader, not an author, as a reader, that Rebecca Yarros, where she might not be like waist deep in the fandom listening to our theories, because for artist integrity she's not, I'm just telling you, but she does listen and she does hear, and she's like, no, I do hear you, I do see you, I see what you like, and you like what I like, so let's just have fun with it, you know? So I hope that this theme continues. And yes, did I cry during this book? Yes. Did it rip out my heart? Yes. Did I cry during Iron Flame? Did I cry during Fourth Wing? Yes, and yes. But I cried because I cared so much, because I had so much fun at other parts, except for Iron Flame. But because I had so much fun during the rest of the book, those tear-jerking moments hit even harder. And I hope that this trend continues, where it is unapologetically exactly what it is. You know, we're here for a good time, not a long time, and especially in trying times like these, we need fun wherever we can get it. So I am happy to have read Onyx Storm. I hope that you're happy to have listened to me ramble for hours at this point. My camera's gonna die again, and my ass hurts. So I'm signing off. Thank you for spending time with me. If you liked this video, please hit subscribe. I got more thoughtful commentary coming down the pipeline. If you have any suggestions of things I should read, put it down below. If you have any theories, put it down below. If you have anything that you want to disagree with me, put it down below. This is more of a call to conversation over what I think is correct, because I never think I'm correct. Again, I think I'm a little dumb, and that's okay. I can only be who I am, and I can only know what I've learned. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been drawing or working on a craft, oh, it looks so good, babe. God, you're so talented. I'm so proud of you. Make sure you tag me when it's finished so I can see it, because oh my god, it looks so good already. So yeah, if you're a friend, thanks for staying. And if you're a traveler and you might never come back, well, thanks for spending this time with me anyway. Glad to have you. So honored to have spent this time with you. I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted. Later. Oh, my ass hurts. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm done. I've done recording. No. I love how I completely forgot to mention Theophany in any context around her whatsoever. Like, she's like the main villain of the movie, and oh my god, the book. She's like the main villain of the book, and I just only mentioned her kind of a little bit near the end. Oh well.